Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Saiyan God, the true progenitor of the royal bloodline Naruto x Vados Dragon Ball Super. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Resonant Awakening. The horizon bled crimson across Konoha's skyline. Clouds stretched like wounds against the dying day. Naruto Uzumaki stood atop the Hokage monument, hands pressed against his temples, fighting the resonance that had plagued him for weeks. His breathing came in measured intervals, a technique Sakura had taught him for managing pain, but the pressure building behind his eyes defied medical explanation. "Not now," he whispered, voice rasping against the evening breeze. "Not before the summit." The sensation wasn't pain exactly. More like remembering something he'd never experienced, a dissonance between what was and what should be. At 25, Naruto had grown accustomed to the peculiarities of hosting the Nine Tails, but this was fundamentally different. Kurama felt it too. The great fox had grown increasingly restless within him, sometimes falling completely silent for days before erupting in confused growls about ancient resonance and stellar memory. Below, Konoha sprawled like a circuit board of lights and shadows. 7 years after the Fourth Great Shinobi War, peace had fostered prosperity. The village had expanded twice over, its borders stretching to accommodate technological advancement and population growth. Naruto's gaze swept across the new research district where Shikamaru's team developed applications for chakra that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. And yet something's missing. Something fundamental. The thought wasn't entirely his own. A familiar chakra signature approached from behind, precise, measured steps against stone. He didn't turn. "Hinata, the Hokage requested your presence an hour ago." Her voice carried none of the hesitation that had characterized their youth. Years serving as claw and diplomatic liaison had honed her confidence into something formidable. "The Kumogakure representatives are growing restless." Naruto turned, momentarily caught by how moonlight transformed her features. The Byakugan princess had evolved into something beyond her clan's rigid expectations, her traditional robes modified with armor elements suited for a woman who navigated both battlefield and council chamber. Her hair, shorter now and framing sharp cheekbones, accentuated eyes that had witnessed more than most. "Tell them I was communing with ancient spirits for guidance," he offered with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I already did." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "But you might make it convincing by actually attending." "You're pale, Naruto. The episodes are getting worse, aren't they?" The concern in her voice wasn't purely personal. Their romantic entanglement had ended years ago, transformed into something more complex, a friendship deepened by mutual respect and shared responsibility. Hinata was among the few who knew about his recent complications. "I'm managing." He straightened, adjusting the specialized Jonin uniform that distinguished him as Konoha's foremost sealing expert. "Just after effects from that barrier sealing mission in Iron Country." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Your chakra is oscillating. Even without activating my Byakugan, I can see the fluctuations." "That obvious?" "Only to someone who knows what to look for." She extended her hand, palm up, an offering. "I've brought something that might help. From my personal research." In her palm rested a small seal tag unlike any standard Konoha design. The markings incorporated elements of traditional Hyuga chakra control techniques woven into Uzumaki's spiral patterns. "Your stabilization matrix." Naruto took it carefully, examining the intricate brushwork. "I thought this was theoretical. I completed the practical application yesterday. It should dampen the resonance without suppressing your normal chakra flow." He placed it against his forearm, channeling a precise amount of chakra. The seal melted into his skin, spreading like liquid silver before disappearing entirely. The effect was immediate. Not elimination of the strange pressure, but a translation of it from painful static to comprehensible background noise. "That's remarkable." His eyes widened as his perception clarified. "Hinata, this is beyond standard fuinjutsu. The spiritual mathematics alone were inspired by your research on dimensional barriers." She smiled slightly. "We should go. Kakashi-sama has that look he gets when diplomatic incidents are imminent." As they descended toward the administrative district, Naruto's senses extended outward with newfound clarity. Hinata's say, Al hadn't merely dampened the resonance, it had organized it. The village below suddenly appeared overlaid with threads of energy he'd never consciously perceived before, connections and patterns that extended beyond normal chakra networks. Do you see that? He asked abruptly, stopping on a rooftop. Hinata paused. See what? The lattice. Like chakra, but he gestured toward the research district where the energy patterns intensified, converging around a particular laboratory building. Without prompting, Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins emerging around her eyes as her perception expanded. For several seconds she said nothing, then her breath caught. That's impossible, she whispered. I've never seen anything like this. It's as if. She turned slowly, her enhanced vision scanning the village. As if there are frequencies of chakra that shouldn't exist. Patterns that connect to nowhere. Not nowhere, Naruto murmured. Somewhere else. The strange certainty in his voice caused Hinata to look at him sharply. Before she could question him, a messenger appeared in a swirl of leaves, one of Kakashi's Anbu guards. Uzumaki-san, Hyuga-sama, the masked figure intoned. The Hokage requests your immediate presence. The situation has escalated. The administrative building hummed with contained tension. Representatives from 4 nations had gathered for what should have been routine trade negotiations. But the atmosphere in the central chamber suggested anything but routine. Kakashi Hatake, still serving as 6th Hokage despite numerous attempted retirements, stood at the central table with an expression of practiced diplomatic neutrality that Naruto recognized as trouble. Ah, our sealing specialist finally arrives, Kakashi said, his visible eye crinkly. Ingen, what strangers might mistake for amusement. Perhaps you'd care to explain why the Kumogakure delegation's security seals have been triggering randomly for the past 3 hours. The Raikage's advisor, a stern-faced woman with lightning-scarred hands, stepped forward. We've ruled out deliberate tampering, but something is interfering with our protective measures. Our sensors report dimensional instability. Naruto moved toward the conference table where seal diagrams had been laid out. The Kumo seals were elegant, sophisticated creations designed to detect and counter specific threats. Nothing that should malfunction without cause. When did this start? He examined the activation patterns, noticing immediately that the trigger sequences followed no logical intrusion pattern. Shortly after moonrise, the advisor replied, and it's not just our security measures. Weather patterns above the village have developed anomalies, localized atmospheric pressure changes that our sensors can't explain. Naruto's fingers traced the activation points on the seal diagrams, following the same patterns he'd seen in the energy lattice outside. The resonance behind his eyes intensified despite Hinata's stabilization seal. It's responding to something, he said quietly, then looked up at Kakashi. Permission to investigate the research district. Specifically Building 7. Kakashi's eye narrowed slightly, the only indication of surprise. Building 7 housed Konoha's most classified dimensional research, experiments based partially on Otsutsuki technology recovered after the war. Granted. Take Hinata and Shikamaru. He turned to the delegates. We'll recess until this technical issue is resolved. My apologies for the inconvenience. As they exited the chamber, Hinata moved closer to Naruto. How did you know about Building 7? That project is restricted even from clan heads. I don't know, he admitted. But that's where the patterns are strongest. Like they're being drawn there. Or emanating from there. Shikamaru Nara waited in the hallway, leaning against a wall with characteristic languid posture that belied his sharp attention. Troublesome timing, he noted. Falling into step beside them. We've got anomalous readings across all sensor networks. Something's disrupting the electromagnetic field around the village. Not electromagnetic, Naruto corrected without thinking. It's resonance in the dimensional boundary layer. Both his companions stopped walking, staring at him. What? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. That's classified theoretical terminology from Project Threshold. How do you? I don't know. Naruto's jaw tightened. The words just fit. Shikamaru studied him for a moment, then sighed. This is going to be troublesome in ways I can't even calculate yet. Isn't it? They requisitioned a secure transport to the research district, bypassing curious civilians and regular shinobi. As they approached Building 7, and you. Unassuming structure distinguished only by its excessive security measures, Naruto's discomfort intensified into something approaching recognition. The energy patterns were practically visible now, spiraling around the facility like luminous currents. Something's accelerating, he muttered, forming a hand sign to focus his perception. The resonance pattern is amplifying itself. Shikamaru keyed in his access code, leading them through 3 successive security checkpoints. Whatever you're sensing started 93 minutes ago. Our researchers were conducting standard measurements of the artifact when energy output suddenly tripled without apparent cause. What artifact? Hinata asked. Classified remnant from the Otsutsuki dimension. Shikamaru's tone suggested he'd argued against its study. A spherical object recovered from Keigaya's compound. It's been dormant for years until today. The central laboratory revealed a scene of controlled scientific chaos. Researchers moved between monitoring stations while a translucent containment field surrounded a central platform. Upon it sat an unassuming sphere approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, its surface etched with patterns that seemed to shift under direct observation. That's not Otsutsuki. The words left Naruto's mouth with absolute certainty. That's older. The lead researcher, a silver-haired woman with specialized optical implants, approached them. Uzumaki-san, we weren't informed you had clearance for this project. Special dispensation, Shikamaru interjected. Given current circumstances, what's the artifact's status? Increasingly active but following no recognizable pattern. Energy signature doesn't match any recorded chakra type. She gestured toward monitoring equipment. It's emitting pulses at irregular intervals. And each pulse briefly alters local spatial properties. Naruto moved closer to the containment field, drawn by something beyond conscious thought. The sphere's patterns weren't random, they were script. An ancient writing system he somehow recognized despite never having seen it before. Has anyone tried to translate the markings? He asked. The researcher looked uncomfortable. They're not static enough to record properly. They shift too quickly for analysis. They're not shifting, Naruto said. They're breathing. Before anyone could question this bizarre statement, he pressed his palm against the containment field. Immediately, alarms blared as monitoring equipment registered massive energy spikes. The sphere began to rotate, its surface patterns aligning toward Naruto like a compass finding north. Step back. The researcher moved to intervene, but Hinata caught her arm. Wait, Hinata said, her Byakugan active. The patterns are stabilizing. It's responding to him specifically. Quote, the sphere's rotation accelerated, emitting pulses of golden light that passed harmlessly through the containment field. Each pulse synchronized with Naruto's heartbeat, creating a feedback loop that resonated through the room. The markings resolved into distinct characters, still unfamiliar to everyone except Naruto, who found himself reading them as naturally as breathing. Beacon of the spiral path, he translated aloud. Keystone of realms, awakener of the divine tree. The final phrase triggered something deep within him. Kurama's presence suddenly surged in his consciousness. The Nine Tails awakening with a roar that manifested as visible chakra around Naruto's form. I remember this power, Kurama's voice reverberated in Naruto's mind. From before the sage, before everything. The containment field fluctuated as reality itself seemed to bend around the sphere. Space distorted, creating a mirroring effect where images from elsewhere briefly superimposed over the laboratory, stars unlike any in their sky, landscapes of impossible geometry, and for an instant, a figure watching from across dimensional boundaries. Tall, pale blue skin, white hair in an upswept style, holding a staff with inexplicable authority. Her eyes met Naruto's across the dimensional rift, ancient, knowing eyes that widened in unmistakable recognition. Then everything collapsed back to normal as the sphere went dormant, its patterns fading to dull inscriptions. The monitoring equipment settled into regular readings while researchers stared in confusion. What? Shikamaru finally broke the silence. Was that? Naruto stepped back from the containment field, his mind racing with impressions and information he couldn't possibly possess. A beacon, he answered. And someone just received the signal. 3 days later, Naruto stood at Konoha's main gate, mission parameters memorized and supplies sealed into specialized scrolls at his hip. The diplomatic summit had concluded with temporary agreements and many unanswered questions, most concerning the strange phenomena that had briefly affected the village's security systems. ABR. Ankh escort mission seems beneath your qualifications, Kakashi noted, having personally appeared to see him off. But given recent events, some distance from the village might be prudent. What we, NT unsaid was clear. Naruto's connection to the artifact had raised concerns at the highest levels. His inexplicable knowledge of classified material couldn't be ignored, nor could the energy readings that now registered whenever he entered the research district. The fire daimyo's niece deserves adequate protection, Naruto replied diplomatically. And the route to the land of Hot Springs Cross S territories where bandits have been unusually active. Indeed, Kakashi's visible eye studied him carefully. Though I'm more concerned about your stability than bandits. Sakura's examinations show unusual activity in your chakra network. Nothing I can't handle. The noncommittal sound carried decades of experience with subordinates downplaying serious conditions. Which is why Hinata will be joining your escort team. Her unique perspective may prove valuable. As if summoned by her name, Hinata appeared at the gate, dressed in field gear that balanced mobility with protection. The Hyuga crest adorned her shoulder, while specialized tools for her diplomatic function hung at her belt. The caravan is prepared, Hokage-sama. Her formal address didn't match the evaluating look she gave Naruto. Preliminary security sweep complete. Excellent. Kakashi handed Naruto a sealed scroll. Additional parameters. For your eyes only, to be opened only once you've crossed the border. Naruto accepted it, recognizing the complex security seals that would destroy its contents if tampered with. Understood. One more thing. Kakashi lowered his voice. The artifact has been relocated to a secure facility outside the village. Its energy signature disappeared completely approximately 6 hours ago, as if it had served its purpose. Before Naruto could respond, a third figure joined them, Shikamaru. Looking distinctly irritated at being awake before noon. Final team member reporting. He adjusted the specialized tool pouch that contained his shadow manipulation equipment. Though I still maintain this mission configuration is excessive for a simple escort. Nothing is simple anymore, it seems. Kakashi stepped back. Complete this mission efficiently and return for debriefing. Whatever's happening, we'll face it together as always. The journey began uneventfully, their 4-person team escorting the ornate caravan carrying Lady Himari, the fire daimyo's 19-year-old niece traveling to diplomatic marriage negotiations. The young noblewoman remained largely within her palanquin, attended by handmaidens and protected by both the Konoha shinobi and her family's samurai guards. By midday, they had cleared the densely populated areas surrounding Konoha and entered the forest paths that would eventually lead them to the border. Naruto maintained point position, senses extended for any threat, while Hinata regularly activated her Byakugan to scan for potential ambushes. You're unusually quiet, Shikamaru noted, dropping back from his forward position to walk alongside Naruto. Typically, I'm begging you to stop talking by this point in a mission. Just focused. Naruto's eyes continuously swept the surrounding forest, but his attention was divided between external threats and internal changes. The resonance had stabilized into a constant background awareness, like hearing a conversation from another room, distinct enough to register but too distant to comprehend. Right, Shikamaru matched his pace effortlessly. And I'm just along because Kakashi thought you needed tactical support for a routine escort. Naruto glanced at his longtime friend, recognizing the probing beneath the dry sarcasm. What did they tell you about the artifact? Not enough. Shikamaru kept his voice low. But I've been running analysis on the energy patterns it emitted. They don't match any known chakra signature, not even the Otsutsuki readings we've documented. The mathematical structure suggests something that evolved separately from our understanding of chakra. It's older. Naruto repeated his assertion from the laboratory. From before chakra was distributed. Shikamaru's sharp gaze fixed on him. And how exactly would you know that? Before Naruto could formulate a response that wouldn't sound completely irrational, Hinata's voice cut through their conversation. Movement ahead. 12 figures, chakra signatures suppressed but detectable. The caravan halted as Naruto signaled their defensive formation. The samurai guards moved to protect the palanquin while Shikamaru positioned himself to maximize shadow coverage. Bandits, one of the samurai captains asked, hand on his sword hilt. No, Hinata's Byakugan remained active, veins prominent around her focused eyes. Their chakra flow patterns indicate shinobi training. And, she hesitated. Their physical composition appears wrong. Wrong how? Naruto pressed. Cellular density is approximately 30% higher than normal human range. And there's an energy signature overlaying their chakra networks that I've never encountered before. Her expression showed the strain of extending her Byakugan to its limits. It's similar to what we saw with the artifact. The forest ahead remained deceptively peaceful. Birds still sang, sunlight still filtered through the canopy. Yet Naruto could now sense what Hinata had detected, presences moving with deliberate stealth. Their chakra signatures muffled but distinctly abnormal. Defensive perimeter, he ordered. Hinata, maintain surveillance. Shikamaru, shadow containment ready. All engage and assess. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Naruto created 4 shadow clones that immediately dispersed into the surrounding forest. He removed a specialized kunai from his equipment pouch, 1 INCR. Ibed with seals of his own design that combined elements of his father's Flying Thunder God technique with chakra disruption patterns. The attack came suddenly, not from ahead where Hinata had detected movement, but from above. Figures dropped from the canopy with impossible speed, their forms blurring beyond normal human capability. Their appearances were humanoid but uniformly strange, pale skin with faint geometric patterns. Eyes that reflected light unnaturally, and no identifying marks of any shinobi village. Naruto's first attacker moved with precision that suggested Jonin-level training. But the techniques were unfamiliar, hand signs that corresponded to no known ninjutsu. When the attacker exhaled, instead of flame or water, space itself seemed to distort around his hands, forming visible ripples in reality. Dimensional release, the attacker intoned in strangely accented language. Void prison technique. The distortion expanded toward Naruto, threatening to engulf him in whatever space-time manipulation it represented. Instead of dodging, he threw his specialized kunai directly into the technique's center. The seal activations collided with the dimensional distortion, creating a localized implosion that staggered the attacker. Across the clearing, Hinata had engaged 2 assailants simultaneously, her gentle fist style adapted to counter their unusual movements. Rather than targeting traditional chakra points, she struck with precision at junctures where the strange overlaying energy concentrated. "These aren't humans," she called out, palm strike connecting with an attacker's chest. Where her technique would normally disrupt chakra flow, the impact instead caused the attacker's form to momentarily flicker, as if struggling to maintain coherence in their dimension. Shikamaru's shadow possession had captured 3 attackers, but he was visibly straining. Whatever they are, they're partially resistant to shadow binding. I can hold them for maybe 2 minutes. The samurai guards engaged with traditional swordsmanship, finding their blades passed through the attackers with minimal resistance. One guard's strike bisected an attacker cleanly, but instead of blood. The wound emitted pulses of energy before the separate halves simply dissolved into particles that scattered upward like reverse rainfall. Naruto found himself surrounded by 4 attackers, each using the strange dimensional release techniques. Their coordinated assault forced him to rely on reflexes enhanced by Sage Chakra, which he summoned without traditional meditation, another sent change to his abilities that he had yet to fully understand. Target confirmed, one attacker announced in that same strange accent. The Awakening One manifests the resonance. Retrieval protocol activated, another responded. Their subsequent attack pattern changed from combat to capture, techniques shifting to create overlapping fields of distorted space designed to contain rather than harm. Naruto recognized the tactical shift immediately and responded by slamming his palm into the ground. Spiral seal boundary. A complex sealing array expanded outward from his position, glowing symbols racing across the forest floor to create a perfect circle 30 meters in diameter. Within this boundary, the dimensional distortions wavered and thinned, providing momentary advantage. "What are you?" Naruto demanded of the nearest attacker, kunai pressed against the being's throat. "What do you want?" The being's expression remained eerily placid. "We serve the equilibrium. The awa. Kenning must be contained before full resonance establishes cross-dimensional awareness." What awakening? What resonance? Instead of answering, the being's form began to destabilize, its physical coherence dissolving voluntarily. All around the battlefield, the other attackers were doing the same, their bodies breaking down into particles that rose skyward. The original will come, the dissolving attacker stated. You cannot hide from one who has existed since stars first burned. The Saiyan God stirs within you, Uzumaki Naruto. The equilibrium must be maintained. As the last of their attackers dissolved, an unnatural silence fell over the forest. Naruto's sealing array faded, its purpose fulfilled, while Shikamaru released his shadow technique with a relieved exhale. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, the strain of extended use evident in her posture. Everyone all right? Naruto called out, receiving affirmative responses from the shaken but unharmed caravan members. What, lad? Why? Himari's voice emerged from the palanquin as she pushed aside the decorative curtains. Were those things? Before anyone could attempt an explanation, a new disturbance manifested directly above them. Unlike the subtle dimensional manipulations of their attackers, this was a decisive, controlled tear in reality itself, a perfect circular opening through which stars were visible despite the daylight. A figure descended through this opening with graceful precision, touching down in the center of their defensive formation before anyone could reposition. Tall and slender, with pale blue skin and white hair arranged in an elegant upswept style, she carried a staff topped with a floating orb. Her attire suggested ceremonial significance, flowing robes of an unfamiliar design that moved as if gravity affected them differently. It was the same being Naruto had glimpsed during the artifact activation. Her eyes, ancient, knowing eyes set in a youthful face, surveyed the group before settling on Naruto with unmistakable recognition. Fascinating, she spoke in perfect, unaccented language. The resonance pattern is unmistakable, yet the vessel is entirely unexpected. She inclined her head slightly. I am Vados, attendant angel of Universe 6. And you, Uzumaki Naruto, have activated a beacon that has been dormant for approximately 12 million years. The declaration hung in the air like physical weight. Naruto stepped forward, instinctively placing himself between this new arrival and his companions. Those attackers called me, the Awakening One. They mentioned a Saiyan god. His eyes narrowed. What exactly is awakening inside me? Vados studied him with clinical interest, her staff orbiting slowly around her hand without being touched. Not inside you, she corrected. You are the awakening. Your existence is the return of something that predates your concept of chakra, predates even the divine hierarchy as currently established. She gestured toward the sky with her staff. The dimensional boundaries are thinning because you are remembering who you were before time was measured as it is now. That's impossible, Shikamaru interjected. You're suggesting reincarnation across different dimensional planes of existence. I am stating fact, not suggesting theory. Vados' attention remained fixed on Naruto. The original Saiyan god was not merely powerful. He established the fundamental principles that later evolved into what you call chakra. He seeded multiple dimensions with variations of this energy system before establishing the Royal Saiyan bloodline. Nay, and eventually departing from recorded history. She stepped closer to Naruto, her movement so fluid it appeared she glided rather than walked. Your energy signature is unique across all 12 universes, a perfect resonance match for the original. The seal within you, she gestured toward his stomach where the 9 tails resided, merely accelerated what was already there. Your extraordinary resilience, your massive chakra reserves, these weren't merely gifts from the tailed beast. They were manifestations of your dormant heritage. Naruto felt Kurama stirring within his consciousness. The 9 tails unusually subdued as if listening intently. She speaks truth. Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind. I have sensed something beyond chakra in you since our energies first merged. Something older than even my father. The Sage of 6 Paths. If what you're saying is true, Naruto spoke carefully, then why now? Why is this awakening happening after 25 years? Vados gestured toward the sky, where subtle distortions were now visible even to normal perception. Because the celestial spiral has completed another revolution. Dimensional alignments that occur once every 12 million years have returned. The beacon you activated was left precisely for this moment, to signal when the original would return in new form. She turned to address the entire group, her manner shifting to something more formal and authoritative. The beings who attacked you serve a faction that believes dimensional boundaries should remain absolute. They sensed the awakening ensue. GHT to terminate it before full manifestation occurs. And what faction do you represent? Hinata asked, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone despite the extraordinary circumstances. I serve Lord Champa, God of Destruction for Universe 6. Vados's expression remained neutral. My purpose is observation and guidance, not intervention. However, she turned back to Naruto. The re-emergence of the original Saiyan God's essence merits direct attention, particularly when it manifests in a dimension that was believed sealed from the main universal structure. Shikamaru stepped forward, his analytical mind visibly processing implications. You're saying our entire world, our dimension, was somehow hidden or separated from these other universes you mention? Precisely. Following the Great Cataclysm approximately 5,000 years ago in your timeline, this dimensional pocket was sealed to prevent further disruption to the cosmic hierarchy. Vados's staff tapped once against the ground, creating a ripple effect that briefly revealed swirling energy patterns throughout the clearing. The seal has been weakening naturally over centuries, but the awakening has accelerated the process exponentially. Naruto felt the resonance within him responding to Vados's proximity, not painfully as before, but as recognition between compatible energy signatures. These Saiyans you mentioned, he said. What are they? A warrior race with extraordinary potential for growth and adaptation. Something like amusement flickered across Vados's otherwise composed features. In Universe 6, they evolved toward justice and protection. In Universe 7, toward conquest and destruction. Their common ancestor was the being whose essence resonates within you, the original who established their royal bloodline before ascending beyond conventional existence. The implication hung heavy in the air. Naruto had long known his parentage, son of the fourth Hokage in the Uzumaki clan's princess, but this suggested something far beyond mortal lineage. I need to return to Konoha, he said finally. If what you're saying is true, then the village could be in danger from more of those dimensional enforcers. Your village faces no immediate threat, Vados replied. The faction that attacked you believes you were destroyed along with their agents. My arrival has masked your energy signature temporarily. She gestured toward the forest path ahead. However, completing your current mission would be advisable to maintain that illusion while I explain the complexities of your situation. Shikamaru stepped closer to Naruto, lowering his voice. This is beyond troublesome. We have no way to verify anything she's claiming. No, Naruto agreed, but it explains the changes I've been experiencing. And Kurama confirms at least parts of her story. Hinata joined their huddle, her Byakugan briefly activating to study Vados. Her chakra, or whatever energy she possesses, is unlike anything I've ever seen. It doesn't flow like normal chakra, it exists in a state of perfect equilibrium throughout her form. And its quantity, she hesitated. I can't measure it, it's as if she contains an endless supply. Lady Himari emerged fully from her palanquin, surprising them with her composed demeanor despite witnessing interdimensional combat. If I may, the noblewoman spoke with unexpected authority. This diplomatic mission remains of significance to the Fire Nation. Whatever cosmic revelations are occurring, my marriage negotiations must proceed. Naruto exchanged glances with his teammates, then nodded decisively. We continue to the land of hot springs as planned. Vados-san can accompany us and provide explanations along the way. A reasonable compromise, Vados agreed, her staff tapping once more against the ground. Though I suggest we expedite travel. The dimensional disturbance has likely attracted attention from other interested parties. As if illustrating her point, the sky briefly shimmered with aurora-like patterns before returning to normal. Something fundamental had changed about how Naruto perceived reality, like discovering an additional sense he hadn't known was missing. The caravan resumed its journey with their unexpected addition. Vados moved with effortless grace alongside them, occasionally tapping her staff to create what she called dimensional stabilization fields around their group. To ordinary observers, she explained, she would appear as a standard diplomatic escort, her appearance automatically adjusting to meet expectations of those not directly involved. As they traveled, Naruto found himself walking beside the enigmatic being, drawn by questions that multiplied with each passing hour. You recognized me, he said finally. Through the dimensional rift when the artifact activated. You knew who I was before you arrived. I recognized the energy signature, Vados corrected. The vessel, you, was unexpected. She glanced at him with those ancient eyes. The original was different in appearance, though certain features persist. The determination in your eyes. The fundamental pattern of your energy. Did you know him? The original. Something complex passed across her features, so briefly he might have imagined it. The original Saiyan God existed before my appointment as attendant angel. However, our paths crossed during the third cosmic recalibration. Her perfect composure wavered slightly. He was unique among mortal beings in his understanding of dimensional mechanics. Most who attain godhood remain bound by conceptual limitations of their origin. He transcended them entirely. The way she spoke suggested personal history beyond official interaction, but Naruto knew better than to press further. Instead, he changed direction. These powers that are awakening, what should I expect? The original commanded both godly ki and what would eventually evolve into chakra. His unique contribution was creating the bridge between these energy systems. Vados gestured toward Naruto's hands. Your current abilities represent a fraction of this potential. As the resonance strengthens, you may develop perception across dimensional boundaries, manipulation of fundamental forces, and eventually the ability to traverse the celestial spiral itself. And the risks? Vados's expression turned serious. Complete dimensional destabilization if the process occurs too rapidly. Mental fragmentation from acquiring awareness beyond human comprehension. And of course, she added almost casually, assassination attempts from multiple factions who believe the original's return disrupts cosmic hierarchy. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Her directness carried no malice, simply factual precision. The awakening has begun regardless of preference. My role is to ensure it proceeds without unnecessary cosmic disruption. And what happens if I reject this awakening? That, she replied with the first hint of genuine emotion, something like sadness, is no longer an option. The beacon's activation was merely confirmation of what was already underway. You have been experiencing the resonance for some time, have you not? Dreams of places you've never seen. Knowledge you couldn't possibly possess. Abilities that exceed even your considerable natural talents. Naruto couldn't deny it. Beyond the recent intense episodes, there had been subtle changes for years, intuitive understanding of complex sealing techniques, moments of perception that transcended normal senses. Connections to Kurama that evolved beyond the traditional Jinchuriki bond. Then what's my best option going forward? Controlled awakening under proper guidance. Vados gestured subtly toward herself. I have been authorized by Lord Champa to serve as your instructor in managing the transition. It is unprecedented to have an angel assigned to a developing deity, but your situation warrants exception. The casual reference to him as a developing deity sent an uncomfortable shiver through Naruto. Throughout his life, he had fought against predetermined destinies, first as Jinchuriki, then as child of prophecy. Now he faced perhaps the most overwhelming predetermined path imaginable. I need time to process this, he said finally. And to complete this mission. Of course. Vados inclined her head respectfully. The dimensional stabilization field will hold for approximately 72 hours, sufficient to reach your destination and return to your village. After that, decisions must be made. As twilight approached, the caravan established camp in a protected valley. While the samurai erected defensive perimeters and Shikamaru coordinated watch rotations, Naruto found himself drawn to a small rise overlooking the encampment. The first stars had appeared, and with his enhanced perception, he could now see subtle differences in their light, variations that suggest glimpses of other dimensional planes overlapping with their own. Hinata's approach was nearly silent, but he sensed her familiar chakra signature before she spoke. The sealing scroll Kakashi-sama gave you, she said quietly. Have you opened it yet? Naruto withdrew the scroll from his equipment pouch, the security seals still intact. Waiting until we cross the border, as instructed. I think, she said carefully. Given today's events, immediate review might be warranted. He studied her expression, noting the controlled concern behind her composed features. You know something about its contents. Only that Kakashi-sama consulted with my father before preparing it. It contains information from the restricted Hyuga archives regarding an ancient encounter with beings from beyond our dimensional plane. Without further hesitation, Naruto channeled specific chakra sequences into the security seals, deactivating their destructive components. The scroll unfurled to reveal Sei text in Kakashi's precise handwriting, accompanied by diagrams that depicted cosmic structures unlike anything in standard shinobi cosmology. As he read, the resonance within him responded to IFIC phrases and symbols, recognition without comprehension, like remembering fragments of a language long forgotten. The scroll detailed an encounter nearly 1,000 years ago between Hyuga clan founders and beings described as celestial travelers, who spoke of 12 universes connected by a spiral of divine energy. Most significantly, the visitors had identified the Hyuga's Byakugan as a diluted version of perceptive abilities that originated with the spiral sage who seeded stars with life potential. Your clan has known about this for centuries. Naruto looked up at Hinata, who had seated herself beside him. Not known, suspected. The account was preserved but largely dismissed as metaphorical or hallucinatory. Her expression turned thoughtful, until you started exhibiting symptoms that matched descriptions in the ancient text. When I reported your condition to Kakashi-sama, he connected it to this archive material. And your seal, he gestured to his forearm where her stabilization matrix had been applied. That wasn't standard Hyuga technique. No, a slight smile touched her lips. It was based on the visitor's descriptions of how energy flowed between dimensions. I've been researching it independently for years, trying to expand Byakugan capabilities beyond traditional limitations. The implications settled between them, that Hinata had been preparing for this possibility without fully understanding what she was preparing for. Her research had anticipated a connection between chakra and something beyond their dimensional understanding. The scroll mentions the celestial spiral, Naruto noted, pointing to a particular diagram. Vados used the same term. It represents the fundamental structure connecting all universes, according to the account. Hinata leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his as she examined the diagram. The visitors claimed that chakra was merely one expression of energy that flows through this spiral, a specialized adaptation for our dimensional pocket. Before they could discuss further, a subtle shift in the air announced Vados' arrival. She approached without sound, her staff illuminating the darkening hillside with soft light that seemed to emanate from within the orb rather than being reflected. Your historical records are remarkably accurate, if incomplete, she commented, having evidently observed their study of the scroll. The visitors your ancestors encountered were Kai observers, minor deities tasked with monitoring dimensional boundaries during the previous alignment cycle. Hinata showed no surprise at being overheard, her diplomatic training evident in her composed response. Then the Hyuga's visual prowess truly does originate from beyond our dimension. All chakra originates from beyond your dimension. Vados corrected gently. But yes, the ocular abilities of certain bloodlines were more directly influenced by the original's design. The Byakugan, in particular, represents percept ion across dimensional frequencies, though significantly limited compared to its inspired form. She gestured toward the stars with her staff, causing several to briefly intensify as if responding to her attention. What your people call Kekkei Genkei, bloodline limits, were originally mechanisms designed to channel specific aspects of godly ki through mortal vessels. Over generations, these abilities stabilized into genetic traits. Their origins forgotten. Her gaze returned to Naruto. Your Uzumaki heritage provides remarkable life force and vitality, also designed by the original as Foundadio. Null characteristics for beings who might eventually bridge dimensions. The conversation paused as movement from the camp drew their attention. Shikamaru was approaching, his expression suggesting important developments. We've received communication from Konoha, he announced upon reaching them. Encoded transmission through emergency channels. There's been another incident at the research facility, some kind of dimensional anomaly that appeared approximately 6 hours after we departed. His sharp gaze fixed on Vados. The description matches the method of your arrival. Unlikely to be angelic transportation. Vados responded calmly. More probably additional enforcement agents seeking confirmation of their team's mission status. Kakashi has implemented village-wide security protocols, Shikamaru continued. He's requesting intelligence on what we've encountered. Naruto considered their options, weighing responsibility to the village against the broader implications of Vados' revelations. We should complete this mission as planned, maintaining the cover story that nothing unusual has occurred. Once Lady Himari is safely delivered, we return directly to Konoha under enhanced speed. Agreed. Shikamaru nodded, then addressed Vados directly. I've been analyzing your statements against known cosmological models. The discrepancies are significant. Your cosmologic models are based on observation from within a sealed dimensional pocket, Vados replied without condescension. Like attempting to understand ocean currents from inside a glass bottle floating on the surface. Rather than being offended, Shikamaru's expression showed intellectual fascination. I have approximately 700 questions. Most will be answered as events unfold. Vados turned back to Naruto. For now, you should rest. The resonance consumes considerable energy, even when stabilized. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. As if confirming her statement, the resonance behind Naruto's eyes pulsed once. Bringing momentary vision of distant worlds, planets where beings with tails transformed under full moons, civilizations built around principles of combat evolution, and Saiyan temples dedicated to a deity depicted with a spiral symbol eerily similar to the Uzumaki clan crest. What was that? He asked, disoriented by the sudden flash of awareness. Dimensional bleed through, Vados explained. Your consciousness briefly connected with parallel points in other universes. It will happen with increasing frequency as the awakening progresses. Will I lose myself? The question emerged from his deepest fear, that whatever he was becoming might erase who he had always been. Vados considered him thoughtfully. The original retained his fundamental nature through ascension. His compassion, his determination to protect. These qualities remained constants despite his transformation. She spoke with unusual gentleness. You will change, but your core self, what defines Uzumaki Naruto, need not be lost. Quote, the reassurance, coming from this ancient being of unfathomable power, carried unexpected weight. Naruto nodded gratefully before rising to his feet. We should return to camp. First watch rotation begins soon. As they descended toward the encampment, Hinata fell into step beside him. Whatever happens, she said quietly, you won't face it alone. Simple declaration carried echoes of their shared history, from childhood isolation to battlefield camaraderie, from romantic exploration to the deeper friendship that had evolved beyond it. Her unwavering support remained a constant in a reality that suddenly seemed anything but. In the valley below, the campfires created pools of normalcy against the vast darkness. Lady Himari's samurai moved through practiced security rotations while her handmaidens prepared evening meals. For them, the world remained comprehensible, defined by familiar boundaries and traditional hierarchies. Naruto envied them that certainty even as he felt the resonance within him respond to the starlight above, calling him towards something vast and ancient that existed between dimensional boundaries. Something that he apparently had always been. Without knowing, the nine tails stirred within his consciousness, unusually pensive. I always sensed you were different, Kit. Beyond my chakra, beyond your heritage. Something fundamental that defied explanation. And you never thought to mention this. Naruto responded internally. Would you have believed me if I had told you that you carried the essence of a being older than the sage of six paths? That your existence transcended the dimensional boundaries we understood? Kurama's mental voice carried no mockery, only honest assessment. Some truths must be discovered when one is ready to comprehend them. As they reached the camp perimeter, Vados paused, her staff creating subtle patterns in the air that Naruto somehow recognized as dimensional stabilization techniques. Rest, she advised again. Tomorrow we will begin the first conscious exercises to manage the resonance. Your potential exceeds anything this dimension has witnessed in 5,000 years. But control must precede power. With that enigmatic statement, she moved toward the edge of the encampment, taking a position that allowed her to monitor the surrounding area. Her perfect stillness suggested she required neither sleep nor traditional rest, another indication of her fundamental difference from mortal beings. As Naruto settled into his designated resting area, resonance within him finally quieted to manageable levels. His last conscious thought before sleep claimed him was both comforting and unsettling. Whatever awakening had begun, whatever cosmic destiny awaited him, his determination to protect those precious to him remained unchanged. If becoming something beyond human was necessary to fulfill that purpose, then he would master this transformation as he had every challenge before. The stars continued their silent observation, witnesses to the return of something ancient that had once walked among them. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Veiled Inheritance. Dawn broke over Konoha like liquid gold pouring through mountain crevices, painting the Hokage monument in amber hues that made the stone faces appear momentarily alive. 7 days had passed since Lady Himari's successful delivery to the land of hot springs, 7 days since Naruto's world had been irrevocably altered by cosmic revelations. The village gates loomed before them, familiar yet somehow different through his evolving perception. Home looks strange, Naruto murmured, pausing atop the final ridge overlooking the village. Like seeing it through someone else's eyes. Vados stood beside him, her staff planted in the earth without disturbing so much as a blade of grass. Dimensional perception often alters one's relationship with familiar environments. You are seeing beyond surface reality now, catching glimpses of the energy flows that connect physical structures to their fundamental essence. She wasn't wrong. Konoha appeared overlaid with luminous threads, chakra networks, ley lines, and something more fundamental that pulsed beneath it all like a heartbeat. The village fortifications glowed with complex defensive seals, while the great stone faces radiated idol chakra signatures of their carved subjects. Most striking was a brilliant spiral pattern centered beneath the Hokage Tower, extending outward in geometrically perfect rings that no one else seemed able to perceive. Shikamaru approached, having completed his final perimeter check. The Hokage's Anbu have been tracking our approach for the past hour. They're understandably curious about our addition. He nodded toward Vados, whose otherworldly appearance had required no disguise during their return journey. The dimensional stabilization field she maintained altered perception of casual observers, but wouldn't affect trained shinobi with prior knowledge of their mission parameters. Kakashi-sama has prepared a secure debriefing chamber, Hinata added, deactivating her Byakugan after confirming their reception committee. Council representatives will be present. Naruto nodded, straightening his posture as resolution settled over him. The journey home had provided time for PTANCE, not of everything Vados had revealed, but enough to understand the immediate implications. Whatever he was becoming, whatever cosmic heritage flowed through his veins, his responsibility to Konoha remained unchanged. Then let's not keep them waiting. He adjusted the specialized Jonin uniform that now felt subtly confining against his skin. During their return, his physical sensitivity heightened dramatically, ordinary fabrics registering with uncomfortable precision, ambient sounds carrying emotional undertones he'd never perceived before. Vados had explained these changes as natural progression of the awakening, his mortal vessel adapting to accommodate expanding awareness. She had guided him through rudimentary exercises to manage the resonance, transforming painful dissonance into structured information his consciousness could process. Not complete mastery, but enough control to function without constant discomfort. The gates opened at their approach, revealing a reception more formal than standard mission returns warranted. Kakashi stood at the center, flanked by Anbu captains whose masked faces betrayed nothing of their thoughts. Behind them waited representatives from major clans, Hyuga, Nara, Yamanaka, and others with strategic importance to village security. Welcome back, Kakashi greeted them, his visible eye scanning their group before settling on Vados with careful neutrality. I trust your mission was successful. Lady Himari was delivered safely to her destination, Naruto confirmed, formality feeling appropriate given their audience. No casualties sustained. Mission parameters completed as specified. Excellent. Kakashi's attention remained primarily on their celestial companion. And this would be Vados, the angel supplied before Naruto could respond. Attendant to Lord Champa, God of Destruction, Universe 6. She bowed with perfect formal precision calibrated to match Konoha diplomatic protocol. I come under authority of the celestial hierarchy to provide guidance during the awakening transition. Murmurs rippled through the gathered officials. Kakashi's expression remained impressively composed despite the extraordinary introduction. I see. He gestured toward the administration building. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in more appropriate surroundings. As they moved through the village, Naruto felt the stares, not just from civilians witnessing Vados' unmistakably otherworldly appearance, but from fellow shinobi who sensed something fundamentally changed about him. His chakra signature had transformed during their journey, acquiring harmonics that registered as simultaneously familiar and alien. The secured debriefing chamber beneath the Hokage Tower resembled a war room more than administrative office. Reinforced walls embedded with privacy seals ensured complete isolation from external surveillance. The council representatives arranged themselves around a central table where a three-dimensional map of shinobi territories glowed with real-time intelligence feeds. Before we begin, Kakashi addressed the room after security protocols were activated. I must emphasize the classification level of this debriefing. Nothing discussed leaves this chamber without my explicit authorization. Formal acknowledgments circled the room before Shikamaru stepped forward, assuming his role as chief strategist with characteristic efficiency despite his clear exhaustion. 7 days ago, we encountered interdimensional entities during our escort mission, he began without preamble. These entities exhibited abilities beyond conventional ninjutsu, specifically manipulating spatial dimensions through techniques they called dimensional release. Their target appeared to be Uzumaki Naruto, specifically. He activated the central display, projecting recorded imagery from specialized equipment he'd carried during the mission. The ghostly figures of their attackers materialized above the table, their strange features and dissolution into particles rendering with unsettling clarity. Following initial engagement, we were approached by Vados-san, who identified herself as an angel from beyond our dimensional plane. Shikamaru gestured toward their celestial visitor, who stood with perfect composure beside Naruto. She provided information regarding cosmological structures that challenge our fundamental understanding of reality. Kakashi leaned forward slightly. And you've verified these claims? Within parameters available to us, yes. Shikamaru's expression suggested grudging acceptance rather than enthusiastic conviction. Energy signatures, technological capabilities, and knowledge of classified information all support her statements. Moreover, the Hyuga historical archives contained records that corroborate elements of her explanation. Hiyashi Hyuga, who had remained silent until this point, straightened slightly at the mention of his clan's archives. You refer to the Celestial Visitor Chronicles. Yes, Hinata confirmed, addressing her father with professional deference. The accounts align precisely with information Vados-san has provided RDING dimensional boundaries and energy systems beyond chakra. Attention shifted to Naruto, who felt the weight of expectation settle across his shoulders. He had rehearsed this moment during their journey home. Yet facing the combined scrutiny of Konoha's leadership made theoretical preparation feel inadequate. According to Vados, he began, carefully measuring his words, I carry the NCE or reincarnated spirit of an entity called the Saiyan God, a being who existed before the current structure of dimensions was established. This entity apparently created the fundamental principles that evolved into chakra across multiple realities. He paused, allowing the extraordinary claim to register before continuing. The resonance I've been experiencing represents an awakening of this dormant heritage. It explains abilities and knowledge I've been manifesting that exceed normal parameters, even accounting for my Uzumaki lineage and status as Jinchuriki. Skeptical expressions dominated the room, as expected. Yamanaka Inoichi, specialist in mind techniques and psychological evaluation, leaned forward with professional interest. You believe yourself to be the reincarnation of a god from another dimension. I believe, Naruto corrected carefully, that something profound is happening to me that aligns with Vados' explanation. Whether I'm literally reincarnated or simply carrying some essence of this being remains unclear. What I know with certainty is that I'm experiencing awareness and abilities beyond conventional shinobi parameters. Vados tapped her staff once against the floor, drawing attention without aggression. If I may offer clarification. At Kakashi's nod, she continued. Reincarnation as understood in your dimension differs from cosmic essence transference. The original Saiyan God didn't die in conventional terms. Rather, he transcended dimensional limitations after establishing fundamental energy principles across multiple universal planes. She gestured toward Naruto. What you perceive as Uzumaki Naruto has always carried this essence. It wasn't transferred or implanted after birth. His extraordinary resilience, healing capacity, and chakra Our reserves exceed even Jinchuriki parameters precisely because they originate from divine key signatures rather than conventional chakra. Convenient claims, noted Shimura Kaharu, one of the village elders. That cannot be verified through any methodology available to us. Actually, Shikamaru interjected, we can verify certain elements. He manipulated the display to show comparative energy readings. During our return journey, I conducted analysis of Naruto's chakra signatures against baseline measurements from his medical records. The transformation is quantifiable, specifically, his energy now contains harmonics that don't correspond to any known chakra nature, including those of the nine tails. Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins emerging around her eyes as she focused on Naruto. I can confirm visual evidence as well. Naruto-kun's chakra network now contains secondary pathways that weren't present previously. These pathways operate at frequencies beyond standard perception. I can only detect them through specialized Byakugan techniques developed from the ancient archives. A thoughtful silence descended as the council processed these attestations. Kakashi studied Naruto with evaluative attention that felt somehow different from their previous interactions, less as commander to subordinate, more as witness to transformation. Naruto, Kakashi addressed him directly, in your assessment, does this awakening represent a threat to Konoha or the shinobi world? The directness of the question struck Naruto with its underlying implications. Of course they would coincide security ramifications first. Responsibility demanded nothing less. Based on current understanding, no, he answered with equal directness. The resonance itself appears neutral, neither inherently threatening nor beneficial. The primary risks come from external factors, interdimensional entities interested in either supporting or preventing the awakening. And your loyalty? Elder Homura asked bluntly. If you truly carry the essence of some ancient deity, where does your allegiance lie? My loyalty remains unchanged, Naruto responded without hesitation, conviction burning through his words. I am shinobi of Konoha, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Whatever cosmic heritage I may carry doesn't negate who I've always been. The declaration hung in the air, its sincerity palpable. Several council members nodded slightly, seemingly reassured by the familiar determination in his voice, the same unwavering resolve that had protected the village numerous times. Well said. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled slightly, the nearest approximation to a smile his masked face allowed in formal settings. However, practical considerations remain. Specifically, how we proceed given these extraordinary circumstances. Vados stepped forward, her movement drawing attention without effort. If I may suggest a course of action that addresses multiple concerns simultaneously. At Kakashi's nod, she continued. The awakening will progress regardless of preference, it's already irrevocably underway. Without proper guidance, the resonance could destabilize local dimensional boundaries, creating phenomena similar to what occurred at your research facility. Additionally, Uzumaki-san requires specialized training to harness abilities that exceed conventional chakra parameters. Her staff traced elegant patterns in the air, creating shimmering projections that depicted energy flows and dimensional boundaries. I propose establishing a contour-old environment for both research and training. A location with historical significance to the resonance would provide optimal conditions for stabilized progression. And such a location exists within Konoha? Hiyashi Hyuga inquired, his tone suggesting skepticism. Yes, Vados confirmed. Directly beneath this administrative complex lies an ancient structure predating your village's founding. My instruments detect resonance patterns consistent with original Saiyan architectural principles, specifically, a sealed chamber created as dimensional observation post. Surprised murmurs circulated among council members. Kakashi exchanged glances with his advisors before addressing Vados directly. You're referring to the sealed caverns discovered during post-war reconstruction. Our sensors detected unusual energy signatures, but security protocols prevented full exploration. Those security protocols, Vados noted with subtle amusement, are actually dormant seal matrices designed by He original to prevent unauthorized access. They would recognize Uzumaki Naruto's energy signature as compatible, allowing exploration that has been impossible until now. The implications settled the room like weighted silk. Confirmation of something ancient beneath their feet, predating not just Konoha but perhaps shinobi civilization itself. Concrete evidence supporting Vados' extraordinary claims. After extensive discussion of security parameters and information classification, the Council reached consensus. Exploration of the sealed chambers would proceed under controlled conditions. A specialized team would accompany Naruto, including Vados as expert consultant, Hinata for her enhanced perceptive abilities, and Shikamaru for analytical documentation. We begin tomorrow at dawn, Kakashi concluded, rising from his seat to signal the meeting's end. Until then, I suggest everyone rest and prepare. We're venturing into territory beyond conventional understanding. Clarity of mind will be essential. As the council members dispersed, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Kakashi in the debriefing chamber. His former teacher and current Hokage studied him with an expression that mixed professional assessment with personal concern. How are you really handling this, Naruto? The simple question, asked without ceremony or audience, breached the formal barriers of their official interaction. Naruto exhaled slowly, allowing his carefully maintained composure to soften. Honestly, it's overwhelming. Every hour brings new awareness, new sensations I can barely process. He gestured vaguely toward his head. The resonance has stabilized thanks to Vados' guidance, but I keep having moments where I know things I shouldn't possibly know. Technical specifications for dimensional travel. Ancient languages I've never studied. Star systems no one in our world has ever catalogued. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. Not entirely unlike my experience after Receive. Obito's Sharingan. Sudden access to knowledge and abilities that weren't originally mine. Though admittedly on a less cosmic scale. The comparison, while imperfect, offered surprising comfort. Kakashi had navigated integration of foreign power while maintaining his essential self, had even turned borrowed ability into defining strength. Does it get easier? The integration? Yes and no. Kakashi leaned against the debriefing table, his posture relaxing into something more reminiscent of their genin days. The technical aspects improve with practice. The existential questions, those require longer consideration. He studied Naruto with analytical precision honed through decades of leadership. You've always defied conventional limitations, Naruto. From academy troublemaker to war hero. From despised Jinchuriki to respected Jonin. Perhaps this is simply another evolution in an already extraordinary path. The perspective shift offered something Naruto hadn't realized he needed, continuity between past and present. A thread connecting the boy he had been to the being he was becoming. Not separate existences, but continuous transformation. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. The informal address slipped out naturally, earning a surprised but pleased look from the Hokage. Get some rest, Kakashi advised, moving toward the door. Tomorrow promises unprecedented discoveries. The apartment felt simultaneously familiar and foreign when Naruto finally returned home that evening. Standard issue Jonin quarters, practical, unadorned, containing the accumulated mementos of his shinobi career. Photographs of Team 7, scrolls from specialized training, gifts from friends marked milestones along his development path. Yet his enhanced perception now revealed subtle energy. Embedded in everyday objects, residual chakra signatures in weapons he'd carried through significant battles, emotional impressions lingering in gifts from precious people, even architectural flow turns in the building structure itself. Vados had explained this phenomenon during their journey home, dimensional resonance revealing the informational substrate underlying physical reality. Not Q-Uite seeing chakra as Hinata's Byakugan did, but perceiving the connections between objects and their histories, their significance in the great pattern of existence. After brief shower that felt angelly intense against newly sensitized skin, Naruto attempted meditation posture on his small balcony. The village spread below, nighttime activities creating constellations of light and sound that his consciousness processed with unprecedented detail. Conversations from streets below reached him not as indistinct murmurs but as clear exchanges carrying emotional undertones. Chakra signatures of patrolling Anbu registered like brilliant comets against the background energy field of the village. You're not focusing. Kurama's voice rumbled through his consciousness. The exercises Vados taught require narrowed attention, not expanded awareness. Everything feels significant, Naruto replied internally. Even the smallest details carry information I've never noticed before. Prek. Isley, why discipline matters now more than ever. The Nine Tails tone carried uncharacteristic patience. You're experiencing raw perception without filtration systems developed over time. Like a newborn suddenly given adult sensory capacity without contextual frameworks. Asterisk. The analogy resonated. During their journey home, Vados had explained that normal consciousness developed gradually, constructing filters that transformed overwhelming sensory input into manageable information. His accelerated awakening bypassed these natural limitations without providing corresponding frameworks for interpretation. Naruto adjusted his posture, focusing on the specialized breathing pattern Vados had taught. Not traditional meditation breathing, but something she called dimensional harmonization. 4 counts inhale through the nose, visualizing energy entering through specific pathways. 8 counts hold, allowing the energy to circulate through newly awakened channels. 6 counts exhale through the mouth, releasing dissonant frequencies. Gradually, the overwhelming perceptual input organized itself into comprehensible patterns. The village's nocturnal symphony became background rather than focus, while his internal energy flows stabilized into balanced circulation. Within this calibrated state, he could direct attention precisely rather than being bombarded by unfiltered awareness. A distinctive chakra signature approached his building, Hinata's presence recognizable even without visual confirmation. Her energy carried unusual clarity tonight, suggesting she had also been practicing specialized techniques. He maintained meditative posture as she ascended to his floor, her measured footsteps audible long before she reached his door. 3 precise knocks, not emergency tempo, but carrying intentional purpose. "It's open," he called, knowing she would hear even through the door. Hinata entered with characteristic quiet efficiency, closing the door behind her before joining him on the balcony. She had changed from formal diplomatic attire to training clothes, practical garments that allowed freedom of movement while maintaining clan dignity. Her hair was gathered in simple tie, emphasizing the elegant architecture of her face. "You're practicing the harmonization breathing," she observed, seating herself across from him in complementary meditative posture. Vados-san showed me a variation modified for Byakugan users. "Is that why your chakra signature seems different tonight?" She nodded, a slight smile acknowledging his enhanced perception. "The technique OWS for more precise control of ocular chakra flow. I can sustain Byakugan activation approximately 30% longer while simultaneously reducing strain." They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, their breathing patterns naturally synchronizing. Unlike many of his peers, Hinata never felt compelled to fill conversational space with unnecessary words, a quality Naruto had grown to deeply appreciate over years of partnership. "I've been thinking about tomorrow," she eventually said, her voice carrying the measured consideration that characterized her diplomatic approach. "The sealed chambers beneath the administrative complex. They've been there all along, predating Konoha's founding, perhaps predating shinobi civilization entirely." "It's unsettling," Naruto agreed. "To discover history beneath our feet that contradicts everything we thought we knew." "Not contradicts," she corrected gently. "Expands. Like learning your family tree extends further back than previously documented." The perspective shift was characteristically Hinata, finding constructive framing without denying complexity. Her diplomatic training had refined her natural empathy into formidable emotional intelligence. "Have you told your family about your involvement in tomorrow's exploration?" Naruto asked, knowing the complicated dynamics of Hyuga clan politics. "My father knows officially through council participation. Hanabi knows unofficially because very little escapes her attention these days." Fondness colored her tone when mentioning her younger sister, now a formidable jonin in her own right. "The clan elders have been informed of my assignment without specific details, standard protocol for classified operations." She studied him with quiet intensity that required no Byakugan activation. "How are you really feeling about all this, Naruto-kun?" The question echoed Kakashi's earlier inquiry, yet carried different significance coming from Hinata. Their shared history provided context that allowed for honesty beyond professional assessment. "Terrified," he admitted, the word emerging more easily than expected. "Not of the power itself, but of losing connection to who I've always been. To the people and principles that define me." Her expression softened with understanding. That fear itself is evidence that you remain fundamentally Naruto. Someone truly lost to sea. Cosmic power wouldn't worry about maintaining human connections. The simple observation provided unexpected comfort, logic cutting through emotional complexity with characteristic Hinata precision. Also, she added with subtle humor, I don't believe the universe could create power sufficient to override Uzumaki Naruto's stubborn commitment to his precious people. Your will has bent reality before, I've witnessed it personally. A genuine smile formed in response to her faith, the first since returning to Konoha. Have I mentioned recently that your perspective is invaluable? Not in those specific words, she replied with answering smile. But appreciation noted. Their conversation shifted to practical preparations for tomorrow's exploration, equipment considerations, team coordination protocols, contingency planning. The normalcy of mission preparation provided grounding counterpoint to cosmic implications, transforming overwhelming concept into manageable operation. As midnight approached, Hinata rose to leave, pausing at the balcony doorway. One more thing you should know. I've been authorized to document everything we discover tomorrow for inclusion in both Konoha's class Sci-Fi archives and the Hyuga Historical Repository. Logical choice, Naruto acknowledged. Your observational skills are unmatched. There's more. Something in her tone suggested personal significance beyond professional assignment. The authorization comes with provisional access to the most restricted section of Hyuga archives, records even clan heads typically cannot view without Elder Council approval. The implication registered immediately. You think there's more information about dimensional visitors in those restricted archives? I know there is. Certainty shaped her words. My research on advanced Byakugan applications led me to indexed references I couldn't access directly. References to something called the Celestial Spiral, and techniques for perceiving beyond dimensional boundaries. The terminology aligned precisely with concepts Vados had introduced during their journey home, further confirmation that connections between their world and the broader cosmos had existed longer than modern shinobi history acknowledged. Be careful, Hinata. Concern colored his voice. Clan politics can be more dangerous than battlefield enemies. I always am. Her confidence wasn't bravado but earned certainty. Years navigating Hyuga internal dynamics while simultaneously serving as diplomatic liaison had honed her political acumen to formidable precision. Rest well, Naruto-kun. Dawn arrives quickly. After her departure, Naruto returned to meditation posture, attempting the more advanced stabilization technique Vados had demonstrated during their final evening on the road. Unlike basic harmonization breathing, this exercise required active engagement with the resonance, not merely managing its effects but consciously directing its flow. As his concentration deepened, the resonance responded, no longer dissonant pressure behind his eyes but coherent energy moving through newly awakened pathways. His consciousness expanded outward while simultaneously drawing inward, creating a peculiar state of awareness that Vados had called dimensional perception. The village below transformed in his perception, physical structures becoming semi-transparent while energy patterns gained prominence. Beneath streets and buildings, he perceived ancient foundations predating Konoha's establishment. Deeper still, natural chakra currents flowed through the earth like buried rivers, converging beneath the Hokage monument in patterns too structured to be coincidental. Most striking was the massive spiral pattern centered beneath the administrative complex, concentrate. See rings of energy extending outward in mathematically perfect ratios. Not natural formation but deliberate construction, its purpose unclear yet its significance unmistakable. Tomorrow they would descend into its center, seeking answers to questions that transcended conventional understanding. As his consciousness returned to normal parameters, one certainty remained: whatever awaited beneath Konoha had been placed there with purpose, not random archaeological curiosity but intentional legacy. The question wasn't simply what they would find, but what finding it would unleash. Dawn arrived with uncharacteristic cloud cover, transforming typically vibrant sunrise into diffuse gray illumination that matched the somber mood of their assembly. The specialized exploration team gathered at the administrative complex's restricted sublevel, Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru representing Konoha's interests while Vados provided interdimensional expertise. Kakashi supervised final preparations personally. his casual demeanor belying the operation's unprecedented significance. Standard communication protocols will be compromised below the third sublevel, he informed them, distributing Ali's chakra conductive wires designed to maintain contact despite interference. Based on preliminary scans, we're looking at approximately 7 sealed chambers arranged in descending spiral configuration. 6 chambers surrounding a central 7th, Vados corrected politely. The arrangement mirrors cosmic structure, 6 universes stabilizing a central nexus point. Standard construction methodology for dimensional observation posts. Shikamaru adjusted his equipment pack containing specialized sensors, recording devices, and analytical tools developed by Konoha's research division. Troublesome architecture aside, our primary objectives remain documentation and assessment. No artifacts leave the chambers without triple verification of stability. Naruto completed final equipment check, noting how the specialized Jonin uniform felt increasingly restrictive against his sensitized skin. Vados had explained this phenomenon as natural progression, his physical form adapting to accommodate expanding consciousness. Ordinary materials now registered with heightened tactile precision, creating minor discomfort that would eventually resolve as his nervous system recalibrated. "Are you ready?" Hinata asked quietly, her Byakugan already activated in preparation for their descent. "As ready as possible under circumstances that defy preparation," he replied with wry smile. Kakashi led them through security checkpoints to the lowest currently accessible sublevel, a utilitarian space converted from storage to research area following detection of anomalous energy signatures. Equipum. End stations monitored continuous readings from the sealed chambers below, while barriers inscribed with protective seals separated authorized personnel from the actual excavation site. Initial Ching occurred during Foundation reinforcement after the pain attack, Kakashi explained, leading them toward massive stone doors embedded in the far wall. Automatic security seals activated upon discovery, preventing further exploration. Every attempt to deactivate these seals has failed. They reconfigure in response to conventional nullification techniques. The doors themselves defied architectural explanation. Seamless dark stone engraved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift under direct observation. No visible hinges or mechanical components suggested how such massive structures could operate. Yet energy readings indicated they were designed to open under specific circumstances. "Fascinating," Vados murmured, approaching the doors with analytical interest. "Classic Dimensiona L barrier technology incorporating organic response matrices. These aren't merely seals, they're semi-sentient security systems designed to recognize specific energy signatures." She turned to Naruto, gesturing toward the center of the doors where spiral pattern matched the Uzumaki clan symbol with uncanny precision. "The resonance within you should activate the recognition protocols. Place your palm against the central seal and channel balanced energy, not aggressive projection, but harmonized offering." Naruto approached the doors, feeling subtle vibration intensify with each step. The stone irradiated ancient presence that registered through his enhanced perception as patient watchfulness, not mechanical security but conscious guardian maintaining millennium-long vigil. Following Vados's guidance, he placed his palm against the central spiral, focusing on the harmonization breathing pattern they had practiced. Rather than projecting chakra as he would for jutsu activation, he estably shed resonant connection, offering recognition rather than demanding access. For several moments, nothing happened. Then, responding to frequency rather than force, the spiral beneath his palm illumined, aided with golden light that spread outward along intricate patterns covering the door's surface. The massive stone structures didn't swing open as conventional doors might, instead, they simply ceased to be solid, transforming from impenetrable barrier to translucent membrane that rippled like water's surface. "Dimensional phase shift," Vados explained, approval coloring her tone. "Much more elegant than mechanical operation. And significantly more troublesome to document," Shikamaru muttered, adjusting recording equipment to capture the unprecedented phenomenon. Hinata stepped closer, her Byakugan focused intensely on the transformed barrier. "The composition isn't changing," she reported with professional precision. "Rather, the molecular vibration frequency has altered to allow matter to pass through matter without disruption." Naruto withdrew his hand, but the activation remained stable, golden light continuing to flow through intricate patterns across the door's surface. It's recognized your signature. Vados confirmed. The security system has acknowledged your authorization on fundamental level. These chambers will now respond to your presence as they would to the originals. The significance settled across the group with tangible weight, concrete evidence supporting Vados' extraordinary claims about Naruto's cosmic heritage. Not theory or mythology but demonstra. BLE connection between his energy signature and ancient technology predating shinobi civilization. Kakashi stepped forward, professional assessment overriding philosophical implications. Proceed with established protocols, continuous communication, systematic documentation, immediate withdrawal if instability occurs. He placed his hand briefly on Naruto's shoulder, subtle gesture conveying personal support beyond official parameters. Be careful in there. Vados led their procession through the transformed barrier, her staff providing illumination that complemented rather than overwhelmed He ambient golden light emanating from architectural elements. The passage beyond descended at gentle angle, its walls inscribed with script that matched no known language yet registered as vaguely familiar to Naruto's evolving consciousness. These markings, he said, trailing fingers along inscriptions without touching, they're some form of record or documentation. Historical narrative, I think. Indeed, Vados confirmed. Standard practice for observation posts, maintaining records of dimensional activities within their assigned sector. The script is ancient Saiyan, precursor to modern galactic standard communication systems. Quote, you can read it, Hinata asked, her Byakugan studying the markings with analytical precision. Certainly. Vados gestured toward a particular section. This passage describes establishment of the observation post approximately 15,000 years ago, local timeline. It references seeding procedures and evolutionary catalysts introduced to promote development of chakra-compatible physiologies. The implication hung in the air that chakra itself might represent deliberate introduction rather than natural evolution, their entire civilization potentially resulting from cosmic intervention. That's Shikamaru struggled momentarily for appropriate terminology, significant historical revision. History is always written from limited perspective, Vados noted without judgment. From within dimensional boundaries, certain causal factors remain necessarily invisible. The passage eventually opened into the first of 7 chambers, a perfectly circular room approximately 20 meters in diameter. Unlike the rough-hewn excavation site above, this space featured deliberate architectural precision, polished stone floors inscribed with complex geometric patterns. Walls covered in the same shifting script, and central platforms supporting what appeared to be technological apparatus unlike anything in shinobi development. Recording station, Vados identified. Approaching the central platform, designed to monitor dimensional frequency fluctuations across designated sector. Essentially an observatory for studying reality itself rather than celestial bodies. The apparatus consisted of crystalline components arranged in specific configuration, connected by channels that might have carried energy or information. Despite apparent age, no dust or deterioration affected its components, preservation beyond conventional materials science. As Naruto approached the platform, the crystalline elements responded to his proximity, subtle illumination awakening within their structure. Information appeared as projected light above the apparatus, displaying 3-dimensional models of what appeared to be star systems and dimensional boundaries. It's activating in response to your presence, Hinata observed, her Byakugan tracking energy flows between Naruto and the apparatus. The technology is interfacing directly with your raw network, specifically the new pathways that have developed since the resonance began. Shikamaru circled the platform, recording equipment documenting everything from multiple angles. Can we interpret what it's displaying? Spatial temporal coordinates, Vados supplied, studying the projections with professional assessment. Essentially navigational data for dimensional transit. This particular configuration shows relationship between your pocket dimension and the broader cosmic structure, specifically, its position relative to Universe 6 and Universe 7. Naruto studied the projections WITH growing comprehension, the information registering not through conscious analysis but intuitive recognition. Somehow he understood the mathematical principles underlying dimensional coordinates, relationship between energy frequencies and spatial boundaries. These were transit records, he said, certainty coloring his voice despite not knowing the source of this knowledge. Tracking movement between here and somewhere else. Multiple destinations across different dimensional planes. Vados regarded him with heightened interest. Correct. The original would have used this station to monitor and facilitate transit between dimensions, particularly during evolutionary intervention periods. The confirmation both reassured and unsettled, evidence that his intuitive comprehension reflected actual knowledge rather than imagination, yet raising questions about how such information resided in his consciousness without formal learning. They proceeded methodically through the chamber, documenting architectural elements, technological components, and inscriptions covering the walls. Hinata's Byakugan provided detailed analysis of energy patterns, while Shikamaru's systematic approach ensured comprehensive recording of their discoveries. Throughout their exploration, the chamber responded to Naruto's presence, illumination following his movement, dormant systems activating as he approached. A concealed doorway led to the second chamber, which differed dramatically from the first. Where the initial space focused on observation technology, this room contained biological magneto ring stations, crystalline containers designed to preserve organic samples, analysis equipment for studying cellular structures, and wall displays depicting evolutionary progressions. This was a laboratory, Hinata realized, studying the equipment with her Byakugan. For biological research and development. Genetic monitoring station, Vados clarified, approaching one of the crystalline containers. Designed to track evolutionary adaptations following chakra introduction. The original maintained detailed records of physiological developments across multiple species. Naruto's attention drive, toward particular display showing humanoid figures with progressive modifications to internal energy systems, evolutionary stages depicting development of what clearly represented chakra networks. These are ancestors, he said quietly. Recognition flowing through him like remembered knowledge. Early human adaptations following chakra introduction. The progression shows specialized pathways developing over generations, becoming more complex and efficient. The Kekkei Genkai origins, Shikamaru realized, studying the displays with newfound intensity. Specialized adaptations of chakra ways creating distinctive abilities that became hereditary. Vados nodded approvingly. Precisely. What your civilization considers bloodline abilities were originally specialized adaptations designed to channel specific aspects of universal energy through compatible physiologies. The third chamber revealed what appeared to be living quarters, not utilitarian research space but comfortable environment designed for extended occupation. Personal artifacts preserved in stasis fields suggested regular habitation by someone who valued both functionality and aesthetic harmony. The original resided here periodically, Vados explained, gesturing toward meditation area featuring cushions arranged around central fire pit. Observation posts required extended monitoring during critical evolutionary phases. Naruto approached the meditation space, drawn by subtle resonance that intensified as he neared the central position. Without conscious decision, he seated himself on cushion that appeared designed for primary occupant, larger than others, positioned with optimal sightlines to all chamber entrances. The moment he settled into meditative posture, the chamber's ambient energy shifted perceptibly, illumination intensifying while dormant systems throughout the connected rooms activated simultaneously. From somewhere deep beneath them, mechanical processes engaged with rhythmic precision. What's happening? Shikamaru demanded, sensor equipment registering massive energy fluctuations. System recognition and activation, Vados replied calmly. The observation post is fully awakening after extended dormancy, responding to presence of compatible authority. Hinata moved closer to Naruto, her Byakugan tracking energy flows throughout the chamber. Your chakra signature is changing, she reported with professional composure masking evident concern. The new pathways are expanding and connecting to previously dormant nodes. Naruto felt the transformation she described, ants within him responding to the chamber's energy like instrument finding perfect acoustic environment. Knowledge flowed through newly activated pathways, not overwhelming flood but organized transfer. Like accessing archived information through established connection. I can see it, he said, voice steady despite the extraordinary experience. The purpose of this place, why it was established. His was more than observation post, it was developmental center for chakra integration. The original established it to monitor and guide evolutionary adaptations that would eventually produce beings capable of manipulating universal energy. Quote, Vados approached, her expression showing genuine curiosity rather than simply professional assessment. What else do you perceive? Connections to other sites, Naruto responded. Information flowing through his consciousness with increasing clarity. Similar installations established across this dimension at key planetary locations. Mount Myoboku, the Toad Sage Sanctuary. Shikatsu Forest where Katsuyu resides. Ruchi Cave of the Serpents. He paused, surprise registering as particular connection clarified. Uzushiogakure, my mother's homeland. It wasn't randomly established there. The island contained another installation like this one. The significance settled across the group, that locations fundamental to shinobi development had been deliberate. Selected based on cosmic architectural principles rather than historical accident. The foundations of their civilization potentially representing conscious design rather than random evolution. We should continue, Shikamaru suggested after documenting Naruto's observations. The remaining chambers might contain more specific information. The fourth chamber presented dramatic contrast to previous spaces. Not technological observatory or biological laboratory but cultural preservation center. Artifacts representing diverse civilizations occupied preservation fields throughout the circular room, while wall displays showed historical progressions across multiple societies. The original monitored cultural development alongside biological evolution, Vados explained, gesturing toward particularly ancient artifacts. Tracking how chakra integration influenced societal structures, belief systems, technological advancement. Naruto approached display containing what appeared to be primitive ceremonial objects, stone tablets inscribed with early symbolic language, ritual implements associated with elemental worship, preserved scrolls containing ancient philosophical texts. These were early attempts to explain chakra, he said, knowledge flowing through established connection. Before scientific understanding developed, people interpreted energy manipulation through spiritual and religious frameworks. The original allowed these interpretations to evolve naturally rather than imposing technical explanation. That explains significant theological diversity despite common chakra foundation, Shikamaru observed. Documenting the artifacts, different cultures developed varied explanations for essentially identical phenomena. The original believed understanding should develop organically through experience, Vados noted, rather than through imposed knowledge. A teaching philosophy that emphasized discovery over instruction. The fifth chamber contained what appeared to be advanced communication technology, crystalline arrays designed to transmit and receive information across dimensional boundaries. Unlike previous chambers' preservation status, this equipment showed signs of deliberate deactivation, components disconnected, power sources removed, security seals applied to prevent unauthorized operation. This was shut down intentionally, Hinata observed, her Byakugan examining the disconnected components. Precise deactivation rather than abandonment or deterioration. Indeed, Vados approached the central console, studying the security seals with professional assessment. Following the dimensional sealing approximately 5,000 years ago, communication with other universal planes was deliberately terminated. The original apparently wanted this dimension to develop in isolation for some period. Naruto felt subtle resistance as he approached this particular technology, not rejection but cautionary limitation, suggesting the deactivation represented deliberate protection rather than restriction. It wasn't time yet, he said, understanding flowing through established connection. Communication would have introduced influences that might have disrupted natural developmental progression. The isolation was temporary, designed to allow local civilization to establish stable foundation before reintegrating with broader cosmic community. The sixth chamber revealed weaponry and defensive technology unlike anything in shinobi development, not crude armaments but elegant devices designed to manipulate fundamental forces. Training IP meant suggested preparation for combat across varied environmental conditions, while tactical displays demonstrated strategic applications of interdimensional awareness. The original wasn't merely scientist and observer, Shikamaru noted, studying the tactical systems with strategic assessment. This suggests warrior training and combat preparedness. The Saiyan god combined multiple functions, Vados confirmed. observer, scientist, guardian, warrior, roles that later cosmic hierarchies would distribute among specialized entities. During early universal development, dimensional boundaries required active protection against destabilizing influences. Naruto approached training area designed for physical combat practice, specialized equipment adapted for being with strength and capabilities far beyond human parameters. As his proximity activated dormant systems, holographic projections demonstrated combat techniques combining physical movement with energy manipulation beyond conventional ninjutsu. Combat forms integrating ki and chakra, he identified, recognition flowing through established connection. Techniques designed to maintain dimensional stability during high-energy conflict, preventing collateral damage to reality itself. The final doorway led to central chamber, heart of the spiral configuration that organized the entire installation. Unlike previous spaces focused on specific functions, this circular room appeared designed for comprehensive integration, technological elements, biological monitoring, cultural preservation, and tactical systems all converging around central platform. Upon this platform rested single object, cylindrical container approximately 1 meter in height, constructed from material that registered through Hinata's Byakugan as dimensionally phase-shifted, simultaneously present in multiple reality states. "What is that?" Shikamaru asked, sensor equipment registering massive energy concentration despite apparent inactivity. "Preservation Vault," Vados replied, approaching with evident respect rather than casual assessment. "Designed to maintain temporal stasis for contents of particular significance." As Naruto moved toward the container, the entire chamber responded, ambient energy shifting to higher frequency while architectural elements illuminated with increasing intensity. The vault itself remained dormant until he stood directly before it, at which point surface inscriptions activated with golden light matching the resonance within him. "It's genetic preservation module," he said, knowledge flowing clearly. Now that connection had fully established, containing biological samples and informational records related to the original's lineage. Essentially, archives of Saiyan physiological development including original genetic templates. Vados nodded confirmingly. Such vaults were established at primary observation posts throughout cosmic structure. They contained pure genetic templates untainted by evolutionary divergence, essentially backup systems for restoring original configurations if necessary. The implications registered across the group with varying degrees of comprehension. Hinata's diplomatic training provided framework for understanding political significance of such archives, while Shikamaru's strategic mind immediately grasped potential applications and risks. If this contains original Saiyan genetic material, Shikamaru reasoned, then it represents unprecedented biological repository predating modern civilization. The scientific implications alone extend beyond current research capabilities. Vados finished for him. The contents exist partially in dimensional frequencies inaccessible to conventional technology. Only someone with the original's resonance sign, could fully access and comprehend the preserved templates. Naruto studied the vault with growing certainty that this discovery represented turning point rather than mere archaeological significance. The container hadn't been left accidentally during hasty departure or forgotten over millennia. It had been deliberately positioned for eventual discovery by someone carrying compatible resonance signature. It was waiting, he said quietly, for whoever would eventually awaken the original's essence. Not random evolutionary development but anticipated return. Before anyone could respond to this profound implication, the vault activated, surface inscriptions shifting from illuminated patterns to coherent script. Translation flowed through Naruto's consciousness without conscious effort. "To the awakened one who follows my path, within lies legacy beyond bloodline, truth of origins and purpose. The spiral connects all existence across dimensional boundaries, and you represent its continuation through temporal progression. What sleeps within you now awakens not through accident but cosmic necessity. The cycle continues as it must." The message concluded with symbol that match. The spiral pattern common to both Uzumaki clan crest and the architectural organization of the entire installation, visual confirmation of connection between Naruto's heritage and cosmic design beyond conventional understanding. The original left this specifically for whoever would eventually carry his resonance signature, Vados confirmed, studying Naruto with heightened interest. Essentially, messages and materials preserved for his eventual successor. But how could he possibly know someone would eventually manifest his essence? Shikamaru questioned, analytical mind seeking logical explanation for seemingly impossible foresight. That would require either incredible luck or dimensional perception beyond conventional temporal limitations, Vados finished. The original's connection to the celestial spiral allowed awareness across not just space but time, seeing potential futures and establishing preparations accordingly. The vault's surface transformed from solid barrier to permeable membrane similar to the entrance doors, molecular structure phase shifting to allow authorized access rather than conventional opening mechanism. Within, crystalline data storage devices. Surrounded central genetic preservation module containing biological samples suspended in stasis field. Naruto reached toward the preservation module, drawn by resonance that intensified with proximity. The moment his fingers contacted the stasis field, information transferred directly to his consciousness, not as conceptual knowledge but visceral understanding, like remembering experience he had never personally lived. Images flowed through established connection. Beings with tails transforming under full moons, warriors channeling golden energy that transformed their physical forms, civilizations rising and falling across multiple planets, and central figure moving between dimensional planes with purpose beyond conventional mortality. Most significant was genetic information, understanding of how Saiyan physiology differed from human baseline, how these differences enabled extraordinary adaptability and potential, and how the original had established foundation for eventual reemergence of these traits through deliberately preserved bloodlines. The Uzumaki clan's extraordinary vitality and chakra reserves weren't coincidental adaptations, they represented deliberate preservation of specific genetic markers compatible with eventual reactivation. His mother's lineage carried dormant potential established millennia earlier, waiting for precise circumstances that would eventually produce him. As this understanding crystallized in his consciousness, physical transformation began, subtle at first, then increasingly apparent as his body responded to activated genetic templates. His chakra network reconfigured to accommodate energy patterns beyond conventional parameters, while cellular structures adjusted to support capabilities beyond human baseline. Naruto-kun, Hinata's voice cut through his immersion in genetic transfer, concern evident despite professional composure. He turned toward her, suddenly aware of physical changes through her perspective. His eyes had shifted color from blue to teal, while his chakra manifested as visible golden aura surrounding his form. The transformation wasn't complete metamorphosis but initial activation, first stage in process T. Would eventually bridge human and Saiyan physiologies. "I'm all right," he assured her, voice steady despite extraordinary experience. "It's not painful or dangerous, just activation of dormant potential that was always there." Vados approached with analytical interest rather than surprise, her ancient eyes studying his transformation with professional assessment. "Initial manifestation of Saiyan genetic expression," she confirmed. "Your physical form is beginning to accommodate the resonance more efficiently by activating compatible physiological adaptations. This transformation represents bridge between human and Saiyan baselines, not replacement but integration." Shikamaru maintained professional distance while documenting the transformation with specialized equipment. "Your raw output has increased approximately 300%, he reported with remarkable calm considering circumstances. Energy signature contains harmonics not previously recorded in any known shinobi, including Jinchuriki transformations. Naruto felt the power flowing through reconfigured pathways, not wild surge requiring control but balanced current seeking natural expression. Unlike Kurama's chakra which had initially burned through his system like corrosive energy, this power moved with harmonious precision, enhancing rather than overwhelming his natural abilities. "This feels familiar." Kurama's voice resonated within his consciousness, the nine tails unusually contemplative. "Like something I witnessed during the Sage of Six Paths era, before dimensional boundaries solidified." The transformation stabilized at partial manifestation, enough to demonstrate genetic activation without progressing to complete metamorphosis. Golden aura receded to subtle illumination, while his eyes retained teal coloration indicating active connection to awakened power. "We should document everything thoroughly," he suggested, professional focus reasserting despite extraordinary circumstances. The information contained here is too significant for casual examination. Shikamaru nodded approvingly, organizational mind already cataloging research priorities. We'll need specialized teams for different aspects, linguistic experts for the script translation, technology assessment for the equipment, biological analysis for the preserved samples. With appropriate security classifications, Hinata added. Diplomatic training emphasizing political implications. Information of this nature could destabilize fundamental cultural and religious frameworks if released without proper context. Vados observed their professional response with apparent approval. Your civilization demonstrates remarkable adaptability in face of paradigm-shifting discoveries. This bodes well for event UAL reintegration with broader cosmic community. As they began systematic documentation of the central chamber's contents, Naruto accessed one of the crystalline data storage devices, Information TRA. NS faring directly to his consciousness through established connection. Among technical specifications and historical records, he discovered something unexpected: personal journal entries from the original. Preserved not as formal documentation but private reflections. The entries revealed perspective far more complex than detached cosmic observer, being with profound emotional depth who experienced connection to civilizations he helped establish, who questioned ethical implications of evolutionary intervention, who sometimes felt isolation despite purpose that spanned dimensional boundaries. Most significantly, the journal contained entries describing relationship with particular companion, angel attendant assigned to monitor his activities who eventually developed connection transcending professional parameters. The entries spoke of philosophical discussions spanning centuries, shared observations across multiple developing worlds, and eventual emotional attachment that complicated cosmic responsibilities. With sudden certainty, Naruto understood why Vados had responded to the beacon's activation with personal intervention rather than simply reporting to her assigned deity. Her connection to the original extended beyond professional association, represented relationship that had ended when dimensional ceilings separated their respective domains. He glanced toward her, seeing, beyond perfect composure to ancient being who had experienced loss on cosmic scale, separation not by death but dimensional barrier that prevented reconnection for millennia. Her current professional a meaner masked personal history too complex for casual revelation. Rather than confronting this realization directly, he focused on immediate responsibilities, organizing systematic exploration that would eventually yield comprehensive understanding without overwhelming immediate cognitive capacity. The personal dimensions of cosmic revelation could wait for appropriate context. We should establish regular rotation for research teams, he suggested, leadership experience providing practical framework despite extraordinary circumstances. Prolonged exposure to this environment might have predictable effects on conventional physiology. Agreed, Shikamaru confirmed, already drafting preliminary protocols on specialized tablet. 2-hour shifts with mandatory rest periods between exposures. Full medical evaluation following each rotation. I can maintain dimensional stabilization field to prevent unintended resonance effects on research personnel, Vados offered, staff creating subtle barrier around sensitive equipment. This would allow safer examination of artifacts without triggering dormant systems. As they continued methodical documentation, Naruto felt the transformity on gradually integrate with his baseline physiology, not receding entirely but harmonizing with existing parameters. The golden aura internalized into enhanced energy circulation while his eyes retain subtle luminescence indicating active connection to awakened power. This transformation, he asked Vados quietly during momentary separation from their companions, is it permanent? Not precisely permanent, she replied with characteristic precision. Rather, it represents first stage in progressive awakening. Your physiology will establish new baseline incorporating activated genetic potential, but you'll develop ability to modulate expression consciously, essentially, controlling transformation stages according to circumstance. Like the Super Saiyan transformations referenced in the archives, she showed momentary surprise at his knowledge of specific terminology, evidence that information transfer had included cultural and technical context beyond basic genetic activation. Similar in concept though more refined, she confirmed, the original established foundation for what later evolved into transformation stages. Your expression will likely combine elements of tradition L. Saiyan development with unique characteristics resulting from your specific circumstances, including Kurama's influence. Indeed, the tailed beast's chakra represents additional variable not present in standard Saiyan development. The interaction between godly ki, Biju chakra, and your natural energy system will likely produce entirely unprecedented expressions. The conversation paused as Hinata approached. Her Byakugan deactivated to conserve energy, though her observational acuity remained impressive even without dojutsu enhancement. I've completed preliminary documentation of the vault inscriptions, she reported professionally before allowing personal concern to surface. How are you feeling, Naruto-kun? Surprisingly stable, he answered honestly. The initial transformate ion has integrated with my normal physiology rather than overwhelming it. I feel enhanced but fundamentally unchanged in terms of consciousness or personality. Relief softened her features moment. Airily before professional focus returned. The inscriptions contain references to something called the Whirlpool Nexus in what appears to be connection to Uzushiogakure. There are coordinates or directional markers that might indicate related installation at that location. Naruto nodded, confirmation flowing through established connection. My mother's homeland wasn't randomly established there. The island contains dimensional convergence point, place where boundaries between universal planes naturally thin. The Uzumaki clan's sealing specialization developed partially in response to maintaining these boundaries. The information transferred from Genetic Vault had included historical context beyond personal lineage, understanding of how specific clans and bloodlines had been established. In particular locations to serve functions related to dimensional stability. The Uzumaki's extraordinary sealing capabilities represented evolutionary adaptation to their environment's unique dimensional properties. That would explain why Uzushiogakure was targeted for destruction during the early Shinobi Wars, Shikamaru noted, approaching with sensor equipment displaying complex energy readings. If someone gained partial understanding of its significance without comprehensive context, they might have perceived it as threatening power center rather than stabilization mechanism. Vados no. DDED approvingly at his analytical reasoning. Throughout cosmic development, partial knowledge frequently proves more dangerous than complete ignorance. Understanding components without recognizing air place within larger systems leads to destabilizing interventions. Further exploration revealed additional chambers branching from central room, specialized facilities dedicated to specific research aspects or preservation functions. Each activated in response to Naruto's presence, dormant systems awakening after millennia of standby operation. By late afternoon, they had established preliminary understanding of the installation's purpose and contents, enough to recognize its profound significance without exhausting immediate research capacity. Naruto's partial transformation had stabilized into sustainable equilibrium, allowing normal function while maintaining enhanced perceptual awareness. We should report findings to Kakashi-sama, Hinata suggested as they prepared to return to surface level. Preliminary assessment indicates no immediate security threats but significant research potential requiring coordinated approach. Agreed, Shikamaru confirmed, organizing documentat ion materials with characteristic efficiency. Though explaining cosmic genetic manipulation predating shinobi civilization might prove diplomatically challenging. Truth transcends diplomatic convenience, Vados observed without judgment, though presentation methodology can significantly impact reception and integration. As they prepared to ascend, Naruto approached the central vault once more. Drawn by subtle resonance suggesting incomplete interaction. The preservation module responded to his proximity, surface inscriptions activating with message that hadn't appeared during initial examination. The awakening proceeds according to cosmic necessity, but path remains yours to determine. Power without purpose serves neither vessel nor universe. What sleeps now awakens not to restore what was, but to create what must be. The message concluded with symbol representing neither Uzumaki spiral nor Saiyan royal crest but integration of both, visual representation of merging legacies across dimensional boundaries. Not replacement of identity but evolution incorporating multiple heritages into coherent whole. As they ascended toward surface level, Naruto felt subtle shift in his perspective. Not dramatic personality change but expanded awareness incorporating newly accessed knowledge. The world appeared simultaneously familiar and transformed, ordinary environments revealing Complex energy patterns previously invisible to conventional perception. Most significantly, he felt connection to something vast yet precisely defined, cosmic structure organizing reality across dimensional boundaries. The celestial spiral wasn't merely abstract concept but tangible architecture he could perceive through enhanced awareness, its patterns flowing through everything from cellular structures to planetary arrangements. Kakashi awaited their return with professional composure that didn't quite mask personal concern. His visible eye widened slightly at Naruto's transformed upper subtle physical changes accompanying enhanced energy signature. I assumed discoveries were significant, he noted with characteristic understatement. Beyond significant, Shikamaru replied, Ulrea. Organizing documentation materials for formal presentation. Paradigm shifting on multiple levels, historical, biological, technological, cosmological. And personally transformative, Hinata added. Diplomatic training providing balanced perspective encompassing both objective findings and subjective implications. Naruto met his former teacher's evaluating gaze directly, recognizing the UNASK. Question beneath professional assessment. Was he still himself despite physical transformation? Had cosmic revelation altered his fundamental nature? I'm still me, Kakashi-sensei, he answered the unspoken concern. Just, more comprehensive version, like adding chapters to book rather than writing entirely new story. Relief flickered briefly in the Hokage's visible eye before professional focus reasserted. Then let's discuss what you've discovered and how we proceed. The council representatives have been standing by for your return, some more patiently than others. As they moved toward debriefing chamber, Naruto felt subtle shift in dimensional frequency, ripple through reality indicating something beyond local significance had occurred. Vados' slight pause confirmed his percept. Ion wasn't imagination but accurate detection of cosmic event. The resonance has registered across dimensional boundaries, she explained quietly. Your partial transformation created energy signature, recognizable to those monitoring such phenomena. The cosmic community now knows the Saiyan God's essence has reawakened. Is that dangerous? Concern colored his voice, not for himself but potential implications for Konoha and Earth. Not immediately, she replied with characteristic precision. But it accelerates timeline for eventual contact. Various factions will respond according to their interests, some supportive, others potentially hostile. Then we prepare accordingly, he stated with quiet determination that transcended his transformed appearance. Whatever comes, Konoha won't face it unprepared. Vados studied him with expression suggesting both professional assessment and personal recognition, seeing beyond physical transformation to qualities that apparently echoed the original she had known. Indeed, she agreed with subtle smile. The awakening proceeds as it must, but its expression remains uniquely yours. The original would find that appropriate. The observer, Chion carried weight beyond casual encouragement. Coming from being who had witnessed cosmic cycles beyond mortal comprehension, it represented genuine acknowledgement rather than diplomatic reassurance. Whatever he was becoming carried approval of those who understood its true significance. With renewed purpose balancing extraordinary revelation, Naruto entered the debriefing chamber, ready to bridge worlds between conventional understanding and cosmic truth, between shinobi heritage and Saiyan legacy, between who he had always been and who he was becoming. The transformation had begun in earnest, yet his fundamental determination remained unchanged, to protect those precious to him, regardless of what awakening within him might require. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Cosmic Thresholds. Diamonds. Ional transit requires neither movement nor stillness, Vados explained, her staff tracing elegant patterns through air that shimmered with potential. Rather, it demands recognition that separation between spaces exists primarily in perception. 3 days had passed since the discovery beneath Konoha, 3 days of intensive preparation and diplomatic negotiation. Now Naruto stood alongside Hinata within a complex seal matrix inscribed upon the Hokage Monument's summit. Dawn painted the eastern horizon in watercolor streaks, the village below still wrapped in pre-dawn shadow. Focus on the resonance, Vados continued, her voice carrying harmonics beyond conventional sound. Allow awareness to extend beyond physical location without abandoning corporeal anchoring. Perception precedes transition. Naruto closed his eyes, concentrating on the balanced circulation techniques they had practiced. The resonance responded immediately, no longer dissonant pressure but coherent energy flowing through established pathways. His consciousness expanded outward while simultaneously drawing inward, creating the dimensional perception state that now felt increasingly natural. Reality revealed ITSELF as multilayered construct, physical structures overlaid with energy patterns, temporal flows, and subtle dimensional frequencies. The seal matrix beneath their feet glowed with potential, its spiral configuration matching harmonics within his awakened awareness. Hinata stood beside him, her own energy signature transformed by specialized techniques developed through her research. The stabilization matrix she had created now functioned reciprocally, not merely supporting his resonance but establishing compatible frequency that allowed her consciousness to perceive beyond conventional limitations. Remember, Vados addressed them both. Biological adjustment follows dimensional transition. Initial disorientation is natural consequence of physiological recalibration. Universe 6 operates at dimensional frequency approximately 18% higher than your native plane, with corresponding adjustments to gravitational constants and atmospheric composition. Kakashi and Shikamaru observed from designated safe distance, their presence representing Konoha's official sanction of this unprecedented expedition. After extensive council debate, authorization had been granted for exploratory mission to Universe 6, specifically planet Sadala, homeland of Saiyans who might provide crucial information regarding Naruto's awakening heritage. The seal configuration is stable, Naruto confirmed. Perception registering the matrix's harmonized energy flow. Resonance alignment at 97% compatibility. Vados nodded approvingly. Excellent. Initial transit to extradimensional waypoint, followed by secondary translation to final coordinates. Maintain awareness throughout transition sequence. She raised her staff, its crystalline tip emitting light that didn't merely illuminate but altered properties of surrounding space. Reality rippled like disturbed water's surface, dimensional boundaries thinning as her divine authority commanded temporary suspension of natural laws. Now, she instructed, step through perception. Naruto extended his hand to Hinata, their fingers interlacing with practiced confidence. Together they moved forward into space that simultaneously existed and didn't exist, threshold between dimensional planes where separation dissolved into unified potential. Transit didn't feel like movement through space but rather expansion beyond conventional limitation. Colors existed beyond visual spectrum, sounds carried emotional content, and conceptual frameworks materialized as tangible architecture. Naruto's consciousness perceived multiple potential realities overlapping like transparent illustrations in ancient texts, each variation both distinct and interconnected. Time lost conventional meaning, becoming more spatial than linear. They existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, perception expanding beyond three-dimensional limitation into recursive awareness that threatened to overwhelm human consciousness despite careful preparation. Magnificent, isn't it? Kurama's voice resonated through the experience, the nine tails apparently comfortable within dimensional transit. This resembles what I experienced during transfer between Jinchuriki, existence between conventional parameters. Naruto maintained focus on Hinata's presence beside him, her energy signature providing stabilizing anchor amid overwhelming perceptual expansion. Though her eyes remained closed, her Byakugan activated autonomously, evolutionary response to unprecedented sensory input that her bloodline had been partially designed to perceive. Vados moved through this transitional space with practiced ease, her staff creating patterns that simultaneously guided their consciousness and structured surrounding potential. Unlike her companions, dimensional transit represented familiar methodology rather than extraordinary experience, routine function performed countless times across millennia of service. Dimensional waypoint approaching, she announced. Voice somehow simultaneously intimate and vast. Prepare for intermediate stabilization. Reality consolidated around them, forming temporary structure that resembled crystal observatories suspended within nothingness. Transparent surfaces revealed stars unlike any in Earth's sky, constellations unfamiliar to human astronomy yet strangely resonant with patterns in Naruto's awakened awareness. Dimensional Observatory Alpha, Vados identified their location. Neutral territory established by mutual agreement between universe administrators. We remain between conventional real-it-wise, essentially occupying transitional space connecting multiple dimensional planes. Naruto opened his eyes, blinking as vision adjusted to the observatory's crystalline architecture. The structure extended in directions that didn't correspond to conventional geometry, its dimensions somehow simultaneously finite and infinite depending on perspective. This is... Hinata's voice carried wonder despite diplomatic composure. Her Byakugan perceiving layers beyond physical construction. The energy flows are perfect mathematical harmonies. No dissonance whatsoever. Correct. Vados confirmed. Observatory construction follows universal mathematical principles rather than culturally influenced architecture. Form emerges from function without arbitrary aesthetic consideration. Naruto approach. Oached transparent wall that revealed cosmic panorama beyond. Stars shone with crystalline clarity, their light unfiltered by atmospheric distortion. Between conventional celestial bodies, he perceived D-energy currents flowing like vast rivers connecting galactic structures, the celestial spiral made visible from outside dimensional limitations. Those are universal boundaries, he realized, no. DGE flowing through established connection. The divisions between dimensional planes established during cosmic recalibration. Vados approached, her expression showing subtle approval at his comprehension. Indeed, from this vantage, the artificial nature of universal division becomes apparent. Separation exists to prevent chaotic interaction rather than because of fundamental incompatibility. Hinata joined them, her Byakugan processing information beyond conventional vision. The boundaries appear permeable rather than absolute. More like membranes than walls. Precisely. Universal DV. Saiyan represents administrative convenience rather than cosmic necessity. Vados gestured toward particular boundary glowing with golden energy. That represents the connection to Universe 6, our destination. Initial physiological adjustment occurs more easily here, where dimensional transition can be moderated rather than experienced as single translation. Naruto felt the resonance responding to this intermediate space, his awakened awareness extending naturally into energy currents visible beyond the observatory. The knowledge transferred from Genetic Vault had included understanding of dimensional architecture, allowing him to recognize patterns that would have appeared chaotic to conventional perception. "How long have we been in transit?" he asked, realizing conventional temporality had lost meaning during translation. "Approximately 17 minutes in your native dimensional time reference," Vados replied. "Though subjective experience often varies during initial transit, our consciousness is processing information beyond conventional parameters, creating perception of temporal elasticity." She moved toward central platform where control mechanisms resembled crystalline flower buds rather than technological interfaces. Her staff touched specific configuration, activating response that rippled through observatory's structure. "Physiological adjustment complete," she announced after consulting ethereal display that materialized briefly before dissolving back into ambient energy. "We may proceed to final destination. Planet Sadala currently experiences early morning G in its primary population center, optimal arrival time for minimizing cultural disruption." Naruto turned to Hinata, silently confirming her readiness. The Hyuga diplomat had prepared extensively for this extraordinary assignment, studying cultural briefings Vados had provided while developing specialized applications of her Byakugan to function in extradimensional environments. Her composed determination reflected both professional commitment and personal support. "We're ready," he confirmed, moving to designated position on transit platform. Vados nodded approvingly before raising her staff once more. Secondary translation requires different methodology. While initial transit leveraged dimensional thinning at specific coordinates, inter-universal translation follows established pathways maintained by cosmic administration. Quote, "The observatory around them seemed to dissolve into constituent energy, reality once again transforming from solid construction to fluid potential. Unlike in ideal transit's overwhelming perceptual expansion, this translation felt directed, consciousness moving along established channel rather than expanding through unlimited possibility." Naruto maintained focus on the resonance, allowing awakened awareness to harmonize with transit process rather than resisting unfamiliar sensation. Beside him, Hinata's energy signature pulsed with controlled adaptivity. On, her specialized training allowing conscious participation rather than passive transport. The translation culminated in sensation of reality solidifying around them, physical laws reasserting parameters different from their native dimension yet fundamentally compatible with biological existence. Gravity pressed slightly stronger against their bodies, while atmospheric composition registered subtly different to enhanced senses. They stood upon circular platform of polished red stone, intricate patterns carved into its surface glowing briefly in response to their arrival. Surrounding architect, Chure combined elegant practicality with subtle artistic elements, buildings constructed from materials unfamiliar to Earth technology yet somehow resonant with aesthetic principles recognizable across dimensional boundaries. Dawn painted unfamiliar sky in colors shifted slightly toward violet spectrum, twin suns emerging above mountain range whose geometric precision suggested deliberate design rather than natural formation. The air carried scents both alien and strangely familiar, botanical elements unlike Earth's flora mingling with universal constants like water and stone. Planet Sadala, Vados announced, her staff tapping once against platform to complete transition sequence. Capital city of Universe 6 Saiyans, established approximately 3,000 years ago following Great Unification. Naruto's enhanced senses registered immediate differences beyond visual elements. The ambient energy felt denser, more concentrated than Earth's natural chakra. His body responded to increased gravitational pressure automatically, physiological adaptations activating without conscious command. Most notably, the resonance within him intensified, awakened heritage recognizing environment compatible with its fundamental nature. The atmosphere, Hinata noted, her Byakugan active as she analyzed their surroundings, contains elemental components I don't recognize, yet my body seems to process them naturally. Dimensional translation includes biological harmonization, Vados explained. Your physiological systems automatically adjust to environmental parameters within compatibility range. Essentially, your bodies recognize this universe as valid habitation space despite differences from native conditions. Their arrival platform occupied center of what appeared to be ceremonial plaza, circular space surrounded by columns supporting partial roof that allowed sunlight to create precise pattern across central area. No one currently occupied the plaza, though ambient energy suggested recent activity. Arrival chambers remain dedicated to traditional purpose despite technological advancement, Vados noted, gesturing toward architectural elements. Saiyan culture maintains connection to cosmic awareness that predates modern civilization. Dimensional transit facilities persist in cultural significance even as practical application diminished over generations. Naruto approached column nearest their position, drawn by inscriptions that registered through awakened awareness as familiar despite never having consciously encountered this writing system. His fingers traced patterns without touching surface, recognition flowing through established connection. These describe creation of dimensional transit network during second cosmic expansion, he said, knowledge emerged through resonance rather than conscious recollection. Specifically, establishment of connection between Sadala and observation outposts across multiple universal planes. Vados nodded approvingly. Correct. The original established transit infrastructure approximately 15 million years ago, local timeline. Though technological methodology evolved, fundamental principles remain unchanged. Transit follows mathematical harmonies inherent to dimensional structure rather than forcing passage through artificial means. Their examination halted as approaching energy signatures registered through enhanced perception. Unlike chakra's distinct fingerprints, these presented as concentrated power with different fundamental nature. Ki rather than chakra, though carrying similar individualized patterns unique to specific beings. Our arrival has been noticed, Vados noted without concern. As anticipated, monitoring systems detected dimensional translation despite diplomatic classification. 3 figures appeared at plaza perimeter, their approach demonstrating casual confidence rather than aggressive posturing. Though humanoid in general appearance, subtle differences immediately distinguished them from Earth population. More pronounced musculature despite compact frames, alert posture suggesting constant readiness, and energy signatures far exceeding average human baseline. Most notably, each wore distinctive armor unlike anything in shinobi design, protective elements incorporated into clothing that balanced functional defense with cultural significance. Their leader, Fima, a warrior whose spiky black hair defied conventional gravity, stepped forward with authoritative presence that commanded attention despite relatively small physical stature. Angel Vados, she Akno. WL edged with formal half-bow that conveyed respect without subservience. Your arrival was detected at central monitoring. Lord Champa sent no notification of official visitation. This expedition carries special classification. Captain Renzo, Vados replied with equivalent formality. Interdimensional diplomatic protocol rather than standard administrative parameters. I present representatives. From Dimensional Sector 739, previously designated closed system under preservation directive. Captain Renzo's sharp eyes assessed Naruto and Hinata with professional evaluation that registered everything from posture to energy signature. Despite humanoid similarity, something in her bearing communicated fundamental difference, evolutionary divergence resulting in similar form but distinct nature. Previously closed system, she repeated, significance registering in her tone. Dimensional barriers don't dissolve without cause or consequence. What changed? Rather than answering directly, Vados gestured toward Naruto. Perhaps introduction would prove more efficient than explanation. This is Uzumaki Naruto of Dimension 739, accompanying diplomat Hyuga Hinata. Renzo's attention focused on Naruto with heightened intensity, her perception clearly registering something beyond visual appearance. His energy signature contains resonance harmonics inconsistent with closed system evolution. Specifically, her eyes widened slightly in genuine surprise, Saiyan baseline frequencies despite phenotypical variance. The observation demonstrated perceptual acuity. Beyond conventional assessment, recognition of fundamental energy signature rather than merely physical characteristics. Naruto felt subtle shift in the warrior's demeanor from professional evaluation to genuine curiosity. The awakening transition has initiated, Vados confirmed. Resonance patterns match original template archives with 97% correlation. Preliminary manifestation achieved 7 local days previous. With progressive integration currently underway, understanding transformed Renzo's expression from professional neutrality to profound significance. She straightened her posture further. Right fist pressed against left shoulder in formal salute that clearly carried cultural importance beyond routine acknowledgement. The temple guardians must be notified immediately, she stated, gesturing for her companions to approach. Quarantine protocols for dimensional visitors are superseded by ancient Directive 7. Prepare diplomatic escort to central authority with highest ceremonial recognition. The efficiency with which her orders were acknowledged and implemented suggested both exceptional training and unquestioned authority. Within moments, communication devices unlike anything in Earth technology had been activated, notifications transmitted, and formal escort arrangements initiated. Naruto exchanged glances with Hinata, whose diplomatic experience provided framework for navigating formal protocols despite cultural unfamiliarity. Her slight nod conveyed both reassurance and professional assessment. The situation remained controlled despite evident significance to local authorities. Captain Renzo serves as a lead guardian for Sadala Central District, Vados explained quietly as preparations continued around them. Her recognition of the resonance signature indicates specialized training beyond standard Saiyan military preparation. Specifically, she belongs to lineage designated as awaiting guardians, those prepared for eventual return of the original's essence. They've been expecting this, Hinata asked, diplomatic training maintaining her composed exterior despite extraordinary implications. Not with specific temporal certainty, Vados clarified. Rather, cultural traditions maintained awareness of cosmic cycles and potential return across generations. Unlike many civilizations that transformed historical events into abstract mythology, Saiyan culture preserved practical preparation alongside spiritual recognition. Captain Renzo approached once more, her professional demeanor now balanced with evident respect that stopped short of religious reverence, practical acknowledgement rather than blind devotion. Honorable guests, she addressed them formally, escort stands prepared to convey you to central authority. Temple guardians have been notified and await your arrival at the ancestral archives. The Defense Council requests consultation regarding interdimensional implications. We accept with appreciation, Hinata responded before Naruto could formulate appropriate reply, her diplomatic training providing perfect formal response despite cultural unfamiliarity. The opportunity for mutual exchange honors both our dimensions. Renzo nodded approvingly at the diplomatically precise response before leading them toward Plaza Perimeter where transport vehicles awaited, sleek conveyances combining techno-logical advancement with aesthetic elements clearly derived from cultural tradition. Unlike Earth's mechanical transportation, These operated through controlled energy manipulation, floating slightly above ground without visible propulsion systems. As they moved through Sadala's capital city, Naruto absorbed environmental details with enhanced perception. The architecture balanced practical functionality with aesthetic harmony, buildings designed for both defense and daily living without sacrificing either purpose. Population density suggested thriving civilization, while energy infrastructure demonstrated technological advancement beyond Earth's current development. Most striking were the people themselves, clearly Saiyan by physiological characteristics yet culturally distinct from warrior or race descriptions in the genetic vault's historical archives. They moved with inherent physical confidence typical to beings of exceptional capability, yet their interactions demonstrated social cohesion rather than competitive dominance. Children trained in public squares, combining physical disciplines with what appeared to be energy manipulation exercises under careful supervision. Univers. E6 Saiyans evolved as protectors rather than conquerors, Vados explained, noting his observations. Following near-extinction event approximately 10,000 years ago, cultural reformation established preservation and defense as primary societal values. Their exceptional combat capabilities serve protection rather than dominance. Yet they maintain warrior culture, Hinata observed, her Byakugan deactivated yet observational acuity functioning at exceptional level. Indeed, the distinction lies not in capabilities but application. Their evolution diverged from Universe 7 counterparts following intervention that prevented planetary destruction during critical historical juncture. Vados's explanation carried nuance beyond simple categorization. The original's influence manifested differently across universal boundaries, guidance rather than control, suggestion rather than command. Their transport proceeded toward monumental structure at city center, building whose architectural significance clearly transcended mere administrative function. Constructed from materials that shimmered with subtle energy, its design incorporated spiral motifs eerily similar to patterns discovered beneath Konoha despite evolving in separate dimensional plane. The ancestral archive, Captain Renso identified as they approached, repository of historical records predating modern civilization. The temple guardians maintain both physical artifacts and knowledge transmission across generations. The transport halted before ceremonial entrance where delegation awaited their arrival, individuals whose attire distinguished them from standard military personnel. Their garments incorporated traditional elements alongside practical design, symbolic patterns indicating specialized function within Saiyan society. As Naruto descended from transport, the assembled guardians reacted visibly to his presence, not to his appearance but his energy signature. Several immediately assumed formal salute position, while others performed gestures that appeared ritualistic rather than merely ceremonial. They can sense the resonance, he realized, feeling corresponding response within his awakened awareness. Their training allows perception beyond visual identification. Indeed, Vados confirmed quietly, temple guardians undergo specialized preparation that enhances natural Saiyan perceptual abilities. They maintain awareness of cosmic energy patterns as practical discipline rather than abstract spiritual practice. An elder guardian stepped forward, female Saiyan whose bearing suggested a authority derived from knowledge rather than merely position. Unlike her younger counterparts, her attire incorporated historical elements alongside modern components, creating visual bridge between additional roles and contemporary function. Angel Vados, she acknowledged with formal gesture before turning attention to Naruto. Her eyes, sharp despite apparent age, studied him with assessment that perceived beyond physical appearance. The resonance signature is unmistakable despite unusual manifestation. The awakening proceeds as ancient records foretold. She performed complex gesture NCE that Naruto somehow recognized despite never having witnessed it before, formal acknowledgement reserved for returning authority rather than visiting dignitary. The recognition flowed through resonance connection, knowledge emerging without conscious study. Guardian Cassava maintains primary archival authority, Captain Renso explained. Her lineage has served as knowledge keepers for 27 generations, preserving records from pre-unification era. The records anticipated eventual return, Guardian Cassava stated, attention remaining focused on Naruto. Though manifestation through dimensional variant represents unexpected implementation, The original's essence transcends specific biological framework, manifesting through compatible vessel across universal boundaries. Her SS meant demonstrated sophisticated understanding beyond religious interpretation, practical recognition of cosmic principles rather than mythological expectation. The Saiyan approach to interdimensional phenomena appeared fundamentally scientific despite ceremonial trappings. The Temple Guardians request verification through ancestral protocols, she continued, gesturing toward archive entrance. Quote, confirmation would validate preliminary recognition while establishing appropriate protocols for transition period. Naruto glanced at Vados, who nodded slightly, indication that participation aligned with expedition objectives rather than potentially compromising situation. I would be honored to participate in verification procedures, he responded, instinctively adopting formal cadence aproper. IATE to ceremonial context despite lacking conscious knowledge of specific protocols. Guardian Cassava led their procession into the ancestral archive, Captain Renso and her security detail maintaining formal escort positions while additional temple guardians joined their party. The building's interior revealed space designed for both preservation and active study. Historical artifacts displayed alongside research facilities where guardians documented and analyzed cultural heritage. Unlike museums designed primarily for observation, this facility clearly served working function, living archive rather than static repository. Guardians moved between research stations with purpose that suggested ongoing projects rather than merely maintaining historical records. Most striking was Central Chong. Beer they ultimately entered. Circular space whose architecture incorporated precise mathematical principles into aesthetic design. At chamber center stood platforms supporting crystalline object approximately 1 meter in height. Its structure eerily similar to preservation vault discovered beneath Konoha despite existing in separate dimensional plane. The resonance key, Guardian Cassava identified. Approaching platform with evident reverence tempered by practical purpose. Established during Foundation era to maintain connection despite dimensional separation. Its structure allows verification through harmonic response rather than subjective interpretation. Naruto approached the crystalline object, feeling immediate response within his awakened awareness. The resonance intensified as proximity increased, creating feedback loop between his energy signature and the artifact's fundamental frequency. It was calibrated specifically to recognize the original's essence regardless of vessel manifestation, Vados explained. Her staff creating subtle barrier that contained energy interactions within controlled parameter. Essentially, identity verification operating through fundamental frequency recognition rather than biological markers. Guardian Cassava gestured toward specific position before the artifact. The verification protocol requires direct resonance interaction. Your Sky's participation enhances recognition accuracy beyond passive scanning. Naruto assumed indicated position, focusing on harmonization techniques developed during training with Vados. Rather than projecting energy outward as with conventional techniques, he established balanced circulation that allowed natural resonance without forced interaction. The crystalline artifact responded immediately, its structure illuminating with golden light that spread in precise patterns matching the resonance within him. Information transferred bidirectionally, artifact confirming his frequency signature, while simultaneously providing contextual data regarding its purpose and historical significance. Knowledge flowed through established connection. The artifact had been created during period when the original recognized eventual dimensional separation would become necessary for cosmic stability. Rather than leaving his influenced civilizations without guidance, he had established verification TEMs that would recognize his essence should it eventually return through dimensional boundaries. As information transfer completed, the artifact's illumination stabilized into steady golden glow then fading, indication that verification had not merely confirmed identity but established ongoing connection. Temple guardians throughout the chamber responded with formal acknowledgement gestures, their training allowing perception of significance beyond mere ceremonial completion. Verification achieved with highest confirmation level, Guardian Cassava announced, her composed exterior not entirely masking evident emotion beneath professional demeanor. The awakening transition proceeds as archived prophecy anticipated, though manifestation methodology represents variant implementation. She turned toward assembled guardians. issuing instructions with quiet authority that required no dramatic emphasis to ensure compliance. Implement Protocol 7. Ancestral chambers prepared for authorized access. Historical records unsealed according to transition parameters. The efficiency with which her directives were implemented demonstrated organizational discipline beyond ceremonial observance. Within moments, additional chambers were being prepared while communication spread through specialized networks to appropriate authorities throughout Saiyan civilization. The Defense Council requests consultation following verification, Captain Renso noted, her professional focus maintaining security considerations despite ceremonial context. Interdimensional implications require strategic assessment beyond historical significance. Of course, Hinata responded, diplomatic training providing appropriate balance between respect for cultural protocols and practical considerations. Cooperative security benefits all dimensions involved in transition phenomena. Guardian Cassava nodded approvingly at the diplomatically precise response. The archive chambers will be prepared while defense consultation proceeds. Upon return, historical records pertinent to transition protocols will be available for examination. Their procession reorganized, proceeding deeper into Sadala's governmental complex where administrative and military functions operated alongside cultural preservation. Unlike Earth's typical separation between military command and civilian governance, Saiyan Oshiti appeared to integrate these functions through cooperative hierarchy rather than competing authority structures. The Defense Council chamber reflected this integrated approach, meeting space day. Ignited for both strategic planning and diplomatic engagement. Council members represented diverse aspects of Saiyan society rather than merely military specialization, their positioning indicating cooperative leadership rather than strict hierarchical structure. Introductions proceeded with formal efficiency, each council member acknowledged by position and function rather than merely individual identity. Though specific titles differed from Earth's diplomatic conventions, Hinata's training allowed her to identify approximate equivalents that facilitated appropriate interaction despite cultural differences. The verification confirms what dimensional monitoring systems detected 7 days previous, stated Defense Coordinator Daikon, senior military official whose bearing suggested practical experience beyond administrative function. Dimensional barrier fluctuations registered across multiple sectors, centered on coordinates matching closed System 739. The original's resonance signature generates natural harmonic disruption when transitioning between stability phases, Vados explained, her staff creating visual representation of dimensional frequency patterns. Awakening transition necessarily affects barriers established during previous cosmic cycle. Strategic Advisor Korn, whose analytical focus clearly emphasized long-term implications rather than immediate tactical concerns, leaned forward with evident interest. Historical records suggest previous transitions triggered significant dimensional realignments. Should we anticipate similar phenomena during current cycle? Contextual variables differ significantly from previous transition periods, Vados replied with precision that acknowledged legitimate concern without encouraging unnecessary alarm. The current universal structure incorporates stability mechanisms established specifically to accommodate cyclic transitions without catastrophic realignment. Naruto listened carefully to this exchange, recognizing that beneath formal diplomatic language lay genuine concerns regarding cosmic stability. The knowledge transferred from Genetic Vault had included understanding of how dimensional transitions could affect multiple universal planes simultaneously, potential for both constructive development and destabilizing disruption depending on implementation methodology. If I may, he interjected during appropriate conversational pause, the transition currently underway represents gradual integration rather than sudden transformation. The resonance establishes harmonic relationship with existing dimensional frequencies rather than imposing replacement patterns. His contribution earned appreciative nods from several council members, their perceptual training apparently allowing recognition of technical accuracy beyond mere diplomatic reassurance. The Saiyan approach to cosmic phenomena evidently prioritized practical understanding over abstract theorization. Monitoring stations across Sadala network have registered progressive harmonic integration, confirmed Analytical Director Kali, whose position apparently combines scientific research with strategic assessment. Frequency analysis suggests controlled awakening rather than chaotic emergence. The discussion continued with technical precision that Naruto followed with increasing comprehension as resonance T. Transferred knowledge provided context for specialized terminology. Unlike diplomatic exchanges based primarily on careful word selection, this interaction demonstrated Saiyan preference for direct engagement with fundamental principles rather than merely political positioning. Throughout the consultation, Hinata contributed strategic observations regarding potential diplomatic frameworks for Mana Jing interdimensional relationships, her experience providing valuable perspective despite coming from previously isolated dimension. The council members responded with evident appreciation for practical approach that balanced cultural respect with functional effectiveness. As formal consultation concluded, Defense Coordinator Daikon addressed Naruto directly. The verification protocols confirm historical significance, but practical implementation requires demonstration beyond ceremonial recognition. The Defense Academy training facilities have been prepared to accommodate assessment under controlled conditions. The statement, while diplomatically phrased, clearly represented request for practical demonstration of capabilities rather than merely accepting verification based on resonance signature. Naruto recognized legitimate security considerations behind the request, responsible leadership requiring concrete evidence beyond historical documentation. I would welcome opportunity to participate in practical assessment, he replied, understanding importance of establishing trust through demonstration rather than merely claiming historical authority. Cooperative evaluation benefits mutual security interests. Their procession reorganized once more, proceeding toward facility that clearly served educational and training functions within Saiyan society. Unlike Earth's typical separation between academic institutions and military facilities, the Defense Academy integrated theoretical knowledge with practical application, training center where diverse capabilities developed through balanced approach. The training facility itself impressed even by enhanced standards, space designed to withstand extraordinary energy utilization while providing comprehensive monitoring capabilities. Environmental parameters could apparently be modified to simulate diverse conditions, while safety systems ensured controlled assessment without unnecessary risk. As they entered primary training arena, Naruto noticed young Saiyan warriors observing from designated area, students whose training had been temporarily interrupted to accommodate special demonstration. Their expressions showed combination of curiosity and evaluation typical to warriors assessing unfamiliar potential rather than merely spectating. One particular observer drew his attention, female Saiyan whose spiky black hair and confident posture suggested both exceptional capability and challenging personality. Unlike her companions who maintained disciplined observation, her expression showed open skepticism bordering on dismissal despite ceremonial significance surrounding their arrival. Caulifla, Captain Renzo identified, following his gaze with slight resignation suggesting familiar challenging dynamic. Exceptional capability matched with equally exceptional independent thinking. Her combat potential registers among highest in current training cycle, though disciplinary compliance remains inconsistent. Before further explanation could be offered, the young Saiyan in question departed observer section, approaching training arena boundary with direct purpose that ignored formal protocols. Her movement demonstrated physical confidence typical to beings of extraordinary capability, while her expression combined curiosity with challenge. So this is the supposed awakened one everyone's getting ceremonially excited about. She addressed Naruto directly, bypassing formal introductions with characteristic disregard for protocol. Doesn't look particularly impressive from where I'm standing. No offense to the verification systems, but I prefer direct evidence over ancient artifacts. Captain Renzo stepped forward with expression suggesting this behavior represented consistent pattern rather than isolated incident. Trainee Caulifla, proper diplomatic protocols are less important than verifying capabilities of someone supposedly carrying our ancestral legacy, she interrupted without hesitation. Attention remaining focused on Naruto. If he's really carrying the original's essence, demonstration should be simple enough. Unless the fancy verification just measures convenient Ly unverifiable resonance, without practical manifestation. Rather than appearing offended by the challenge, Naruto found himself responding to the directness with unexpected appreciation. After days of careful diplomatic navigation and ceremonial acknowledgement, the straightforward skepticism felt refreshingly honest rather than disrespectful. Fair assessment, he acknowledged, stepping forward. Road despite Renso's evident concern regarding protocol violation. Verification means little without practical demonstration. Would you prefer formal display or direct evaluation? Khalifa's expressee on shifted from skepticism to genuine interest at his response, clearly having expected either offense or diplomatic deflection rather than straightforward acceptance of challenge. Direct evaluation always tells you more than choreographed demonstration, she replied, moving into training area with confident stride that suggested complete comfort within combat assessment. If you don't mind getting that fancy outfit dirty, of course. The challenge carried no malice despite provocative phrasing, professional curiosity rather than personal antagonism. Naruto recognized genuine interest beneath confrontational approach. The young Saiyan's skepticism representing healthy evaluation rather than reflexive rejection. Standard assessment protocols require authorization and safety parameters, Captain Renso interjected. Maintaining professional requirements despite evident resignation to situation's development. Authorized, Defense Coordinator Daikon stated from observation position, Sir. Prizing several present with immediate approval rather than procedural objection. Standard training parameters with accelerated adjustment provision. Combat assessment provides practical evaluation beyond theoretical verification. Hinata moved closer to Naruto, her expression conveying private communication beneath public composure. Are you certain this approach serves diplomatic objectives? LTER native demonstration methodologies could provide verification without potential complications. Sometimes direct engagement establishes more effective understanding than formal procedures, he replied quietly. Appreciating her concern while recognizing opportunity beyond potential complications. Besides, I'm curious about Saiyan combat methodology beyond historical records. Practical experience provides context theory cannot. Vados observed this exchange with expression suggesting approval of his assessment rather than concern regarding protocol deviation. The training facility incorporates comprehensive safety systems designed for significantly higher energy utilization than initial manifestation levels. Practical demonstration presents minimal risk while establishing experiential verification. With diplomatic considerations addressed, Naruto moved toward designated position within training arena. The specialized Jonin uniform he wore had been modified to accommodate potent Teal transformation. Adaptive material designed by Konoha's research division based on specifications Vados had provided regarding physiological changes accompanying awakening progression. Across the arena, Khalifa assumed combat-ready stance that demonstrated formal training despite her apparent disregard for procedural protocols. Her posture balanced perfect defensive positioning with offensive potential, physical alignment suggesting comprehensive martial arts foundation rather than merely aggressive capability. Standard assessment begins at baseline capability level, Captain Renso announced from monitoring position. With progressive intensity adjustment according to demonstrated parameters. Safety overrides remain active throughout evaluation. Naruto nodded acknowledgement, focus. On harmonization techniques that balanced his natural abilities with awakened potential. Rather than immediately accessing transformation, he established baseline circulation that integrated conventional chakra with emerging key pathways, foundation for sustainable utilization rather than dramatic display. Whenever you're ready, he addressed his evaluation partner with professional courtesy rather than competitive challenge. Khalifa's response came not through words but immediate action, movement faster than most conventional perception could track, crossing intervening space with explosive acceleration that demonstrated Saiyan physical capability beyond human baseline. Her initial strike tested defensive reaction rather than attempting overwhelming force, assessment rather than domination. Naruto met the approach with balanced response, neither excessive countermeasure nor minimal evasion but appropriate defensive redirection that acknowledged her capability while demonstrating his own. Their initial exchange established mutual evaluation parameters, each assessing the other's fundamental approach rather than merely technical execution. Interesting style, she noted after completing initial assessment sequence. Not traditional Sadala combat forms. Your dimension developed different martial methodologies despite similar foundational principles. Shinobi combat techniques evolved for specific tactical objectives, he explained, maintaining ready position while engaging professional discussion. Stealth and efficiency prioritized over direct confrontation, though a Adaptation incorporated diverse approaches depending on specialized function. Her response came through accelerated engagement rather than verbal acknowledgement, movement patterns shifting to Prog-D. FF errant defensive parameters while gradually increasing force application. Unlike undisciplined aggression, her approach demonstrated systematic evaluation methodology beneath apparent intensity. Naruto responded with corresponding adaptation, integrating shinobi evasion techniques with emerging awareness of Saiyan combat principles. The resonance provided intuitive understanding of movement patterns his conscious mind hadn't formally studied, allowing natural response to approaches that should have been unfamiliar. Their exchange progressed through intensity levels that would have severely damaged conventional training facilities, yet the arena's construction withstood energy discharges without apparent stress. Monitoring systems tracked their movement with precision that suggested technology specifically designed to record combat at superhuman parameters. As assessment continued, Naruto felt the resonance responding to combat stimulus, awakened potential naturally emerging through physical engagement rather than merely conscious activation. His energy signature shifted progressively toward Saiyan baseline frequencies without completely abandoning chakra foundation integration, occurring through practical application rather than theoretical implementation. Caulifla noticed the transformation with evident interest, her own combat intensity increasing to match emerging capabilities. "Now we're getting somewhere," she noted with genuine enthusiasm replacing earlier skepticism. "Your energy signature is shifting toward proper Saiyan frequencies. Let's see how far that integration goes." Her subsequent attack incorporated energy projection alongside physical strikes, key manipulation techniques that demonstrated Saiyan warriors' natural ability to externalize power beyond physical limitations. Golden energy surrounded her form as she accelerated beyond previous parameters, combat assessment evolving into genuine challenge that required corresponding response. Naruto felt transformation accelerate in response, resonance synchronizing with combat necessity as ancient patterns awakened through practical application. Golden aura manifested around his form as chakra and D-ki integrated into harmonized expression, physiological adaptations supporting enhanced capabilities beyond conventional human limitations. Their exchange transformed from standard assessment into something approaching mutual discovery, each finding unexpected aspects of the other's capability that challenged preconceptions while establishing common foundation. Caulifla's skepticism evolved into professional recognition as demonstrated ability confirmed what ceremonial verification had suggested, while Naruto discovered practical applications for theoretical understanding gained through genetic transfer. From observation position, Hinata studied their interaction with both diplomatic assessment and personal interest. Her Byakugan tracked energy patterns beyond visual manifestation, aving integration occurring at cellular level as Naruto's physiology adapted to accommodate awakened potential. The combat engagement accelerates integration process, Vados noted, observing alongside her with professional analysis. Saiyan genetic expression responds naturally to challenge stimulus, activation pathways optimized for combat evolution rather than passive development. Is that intentional evolutionary design? Hinata asked, diplomatic training providing framework for discussing extraordinary biological implications without cultural prejudice. Indeed, the original Establish had adaptive response mechanisms specifically to ensure developmental progression through practical application rather than merely theoretical understanding. Essentially, Saiyan physiology learns through doing rather than merely studying. Within the arena, combat assessment had evolved into something approaching collaborative exploration, each participant testing boundaries of the other's capabilities while simultaneously discovering new potential within their own expression. Caulifla's initial skepticism had transformed completely into enthusiastic engagement, her combat approach demonstrating genuine interest rather than merely evaluation protocol. "You're holding back systematic energy projection," she noted during momentary pause between engagement sequences. "Your physical adaptation progresses naturally, but power externalization remains constrained by habitual limitation rather than actual capacity." The observation demonstrated perceptual acuity beyond mere combat assessment, recognition of developmental patterns rather than simply technical execution. Naruto recognized legitimate insight beneath confrontational delivery, the young Saiyan's directness representing efficacy. NT communication rather than merely provocative challenge. Energy projection methodology differs between my native dimension and Saiyan techniques, he acknowledged, recognizing opportunity for practical development through direct exchange rather than theoretical instruction. Chakra manipulation follows different pathways than key utilization despite fundamental similarities. Foundational principles remain consistent despite methodology variations, she responded, demonstrating unexpected technical understanding beneath competitive exterior. Energy is energy regardless of cultural framework. Intent shapes expression more than technical approach. Without warning, her aura intensified dramatically, golden energy surrounding her form transforming to indicate significant power increase beyond previous demonstration. Her hair shifted slightly while physical bearing suggested accessing reserved potential rather than merely increasing existing output. Sometimes breakthrough requires stimulus beyond comfortable parameters, she stated before launching attack sequence that dramatically exceeded previous intensity, not dangerous aggression but calculated escalation designed to provoke corresponding adaptation. The challenge triggered something beyond conscious control, resonance responding to legitimate combat necessity rather than merely theoretical activation. Naruto felt transformation accelerate through established pathways, physiological adaptation progressing to accommodate power levels appropriate to genuine engagement rather than merely demonstration parameters. Golden aura surrounding his form intensified correspondingly, internal energy circulation adapting to support external manifestation beyond previous limitations. His hair shifted towards spikier configurate ion while muscle density increased slightly to support enhanced physical capabilities, transformation progressing through integrated stages rather than dramatic metamorphosis. Their subsequent exchange demonstrated capability beyond standard assessment parameters, movement exceeding monitoring system tracking capacity while energy projection required safety field activation to contain environmental impact. Yet beneath apparent intensity, both participants maintained conscious control rather than yielding to mere power escalation without purpose. From observation position, defense coordinator. Daikon studied their interaction with professional assessment that recognized significance beyond mere combat demonstration. The integration progresses through balanced stages rather than chaotic manifestation. Conscious control maintains priority over mere power expression. Indeed, Vados confirmed, the awakening follows optimal progression pattern, integration rather than replacement, harmonization rather than dominance. His native capabilities provide foundation for Saiyan potential rather than being superseded by emerging expression. Hinata's Byakugan tracked energy patterns beyond visible manifestation, her specialized perception documenting transformation with precision conventional observation couldn't achieve. The new pathways are stabilizing rather than merely expanding. Sustainable integration rather than temporary manifestation. Within the arena, combat assessment reached natural conclusion as both participants recognized appropriate termination point. Khalifa Dice, NG aged with professional respect rather than competitive frustration, her expression showing genuine recognition replacing initial skepticism. Verification confirmed through direct assessment, she acknowledged. Golden aura dissipating as she returned to baseline energy state. The resonance signature manifests through practical application rather than merely theoretical registration. Integratio. N progresses through balanced development rather than chaotic emergence. Naruto allowed his own transformation to stabilize at sustainable level rather than completely deactivating, maintaining party manifestation that represented new baseline rather than temporary elevation. The physiological adaptations had established permanent integration, his body incorporating awakened potential into Nadu. Raw functionality rather than requiring constant conscious activation. Your assessment approach provided valuable acceleration catalyst, he acknowledged, recognizing her contribution beyond mere combat challenge. Practical application reveals integration pathways theoretical understanding alone cannot access. Khalifa's response surprised observers expecting either continued confrontation or reluctant acknowledgement. Genuine smile that transformed her features from challenging assessment to authentic recognition. The historical archives described the original as prioritizing practical demonstration over ceremonial acknowledgement, she noted with evident approval. Nice to see that characteristic persists despite dimensional variation and fancy diplomatic packaging. The observation carried insight beyond apparent casual delivery, recognition of essential characteristic persisting despite contextual differences. Naruto found himself appreciating her directness despite initial confrontational approach. The young Saiyan's honesty representing refreshing authenticity amid formal diplomatic proceedings. As assessment concluded, their respective groups rejoined, Saiyan officials ND Earth representatives converging to continue formal proceedings with practical demonstration now providing experiential context beyond theoretical verification. Caulifla rejoined her training cohort, though her attention remained partially focused on diplomatic proceedings rather than returning completely to regular activities. The assessment confirms practical manifestations supporting theoretical verification. Defense Coordinator Daikon announced, formal language barely concealing evident satisfaction with demonstration results. The Council acknowledges transition validity through both historical protocol and contemporary evaluation. Guardian Cassava, who had observed from ceremonial position rather than technical monitoring station, stepped forward with formal acknowledgement gesture. The ancestral archives have been prepared for authorized access. Historical records pertinent to transition protocols await examination according to verification clearance. Their procession reorganized once more, returning to Ancestral Archive Complex where additional chambers had been prepared during their absence. Unlike previously accessed public areas, these spaces clearly maintained restricted access protocols, preservation systems designed for materials of particular historical significance rather than merely general cultural documentation. The central chamber they ultimately entered contained artifacts whose preservation suggested importance beyond merely historical record. Display systems maintained precise environmental conditions around objects clearly originating from periods predating modern Saiyan civilization, artifacts connecting contemporary society to foundational era when the original established cultural parameters. Most significant was central display Kontai Ning, what appeared to be partial armor component, chest plate whose design incorporated spiral motif matching patterns discovered beneath Konoha despite evolving in separate dimensional plane. The artifact radiated subtle energy signature recognizable through awakened awareness as resonating with frequencies similar to Naruto's transformed state. The original's armor, Guardian Cassava identified, with reverence balanced by factual precision, preserved from Foundation era when dimensional integration remained operational standard rather than exceptional circumstance. Its composition incorporates materials not native to any single universal plane, essentially representing multidimensional construction methodology. Naruto approached the display, feeling immediate response within his awakened awareness. The resonance intensified as proximity increased, creating recognition feedback that transcended conscious analysis, knowledge transferring directly through established pathways rather than requiring interpretation. It was designed to maintain consistent functionality across dimensional boundaries, he said, understanding flowing through resonance connection rather than merely historical education. Essentially, universal adapter allowing operation throughout cosmic structure without requiring recalibration for specific dimensional parameters. Correct, Vados confirmed, her expression suggesting approval of intuitive comprehension beyond factual recitation. The original established construction methodologies specifically to facilitate interdimensional operation during period when boundaries remained necessarily permeable. Essentially, technology designed to function consistently regardless of local universal physics variations. Guardian Cassava gestured toward ional displays containing what appeared to be documentation preserved through advanced methodology, records whose physical composition should have deteriorated over millennia yet remained perfectly preserved through technologies beyond conventional conservation. The historical concordance contains records from transition establishment through implementation phase, she explained, approaching spec. IFIC display containing documentation organized according to systematic rather than merely chronological principles. Specifically, operational parameters established to govern eventual reawakening following dimensional separation period. The documentation contains script matching inscriptions discovered beneath Konoha, writing system recognizable through awakened awareness despite never having consciously studied its construction. Naruto found himself reading naturally as resonance connection provided translation without requiring conventional linguistic analysis. These describe implementation protocols for dimensional reintegration, he realized, knowledge flowing through established pathways. Specifically, methodologies for re-establishing connections between universal planes follow wing isolation period without triggering catastrophic boundary collapse. Indeed, Vados confirmed, the original recognized eventual necessity for dimensional reintegration despite implementing temporary separation. These protocols establish balanced methodology for reconnection without destabilizing existing structures developed during isolation period. The significance registered immediately. Why? Concrete confirmation that the dimensional separation had been designed as temporary measure rather than permanent isolation. The awakening transition represented anticipated development rather than cosmic accident. Implementation of planned reintegration rather than arbitrary boundary dissolution. The separation was protective rather than restrictive, Naruto understood, contextual knowledge flowing through resonance connection. Allowing independent development without external interference until civilization established sufficient stability to manage broader cosmic interaction. Correct. Guardian Cassava confirmed, her expression suggesting appreciation for intuitive comprehension beyond merely technical understanding. The historical records describe dimensional separation as elemental protection rather than punitive isolation, essentially, creating safe environment for evolutionary progression without premature exposure to potentially destabilizing influences. As they examined additional documentation, contextual understanding expanded through both conscious analysis and resonance transfer. The historical records described comprehensive planning beyond merely technical implementation, ethical considerations regarding intervention limitations, developmental guidance methodologies, and fundamental respect for evolutionary self-determination despite superior technological capability. Most significant were records describing eventual reintegration expectations, not merely technical protocols but philosophical framework governing interaction between previously separated dimensions. The original had established foundation not for dominance hierarchy but cooperative integration, respecting unique developments within isolated dimensions rather than imposing standardized implementation across universal structure. Hinata studied these philosophical frameworks with particular interest, her diplomatic training providing context for recognizing significance beyond technical specifications. The transition protocols emphasize mutual exchange rather than hierarchical integration, essentially, recognizing value in diverse developmental paths rather than imposing standardized implementation. Indeed, Vados confirmed, the original established foundational principles specifically to prevent dominance paradigms from emerging during reintegration phase. Essentially, creating framework where diverse evolutionary paths could contribute complementary elements rather than competing for primacy. Their examination continued through additional chambers containing artifacts and documentation pertaining to transition protocols, comprehensive preparation for eventual reintegration that demonstrated foresight beyond merely technical planning. The original had established foundation for cosmic reconnection that respected evolutionary diversity while providing necessary structural support to prevent chaotic implementation. As exploration reached natural conclusion point, Defense Coordinator Daikon approached with expression suggesting both professional satisfaction and practical considerations beyond ceremonial acknowledgement. The verification protocols confirm historical significance while practical demonstration establishes contemporary relevance, he stated with formal precision that nevertheless conveyed genuine recognition rather than merely diplomatic acknowledgement. The Defense Council acknowledges transition validity while offering cooperative security framework during implementation phase. The statement represented significant diplomatic development, official recognition beyond merely ceremonial acceptance. The Saiyan leadership had effectively acknowledged Naruto's status not through blind adherence to historical prophecy but balanced assessment combining traditional verification with contemporary evaluation. The Temple Guardians offer historical resources and transition expertise developed through generational preparation, Guardian Cassava added. Her formal statement similarly representing practical support beyond ceremonial acknowledgement. Cooperative implementation serves mutual interests across dimensional boundaries. These offers represented significant diplomatic achievement beyond expedition's original information gathering objectives, establishing foundation for ongoing cooperation rather than merely historical verification. Hinata acknowledged these developments with appropriate diplomatic response, her training providing perfect balance between appreciation and appropriate commitment parameters. As formal proceedings concluded, their group prepared for return journey to Dimensional Transit Facility. The day's activities had established foundation beyond merely ceremonial verification, practical demonstration, historical documentation, and official recognition combining to create comprehensive contextual framework supporting transition protocols. Before departure, unexpected approach interview. PTED procedural conclusion. Khalifa appearing without formal announcement, her direct manner bypassing ceremonial protocols with characteristic efficiency. The training facility remains available for our practical exchange beyond formal assessment, she stated without unnecessary introduction, addressing Naruto directly rather than proceeding through diplomatic intermediaries. Combat methodologies. Benefit from mutual exploration rather than merely theoretical examination. The statement, while superficially focused on training opportunity, clearly represented personal interest beyond prophecio. Null development. Connection established through direct engagement rather than ceremonial interaction. Despite confrontational introduction, genuine recognition had developed through practical demonstration that ceremonial verification alone couldn't have established. I appreciate the opportunity, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing sincere offer beneath direct presentation. Practical application reveals integration pathways theoretical understanding alone cannot access. Exactly, she confirmed with evident approval of his comprehension. The historical archives describe the original as value. Indirect exchange over formalized instruction. Some characteristics persist despite dimensional variation, apparently. The observation carried insight beyond casual delivery, recognition of S&T. Continuity despite contextual differences. Without further ceremonial exchange, she departed with efficiency matching her arrival, leaving impression of genuine interest rather than merely professional acknowledgement. As their procession proceeded toward transit facility, Naruto reflected on connections established beyond formal diplomatic objectives, practical demonstrations creating foundation that ceremonial verification alone couldn't establish. The Saiyan approach to cosmic phenomena prioritized direct engagement alongside historical recognition, balancing traditional acknowledgement with contemporary assessment. Your interaction with trainee Khalifa established practical verification beyond formal protocols, Vados noted as they approached transit platform. Sometimes direct engagement creates understanding that ceremonial procedures cannot achieve regardless of historical significance. She reminds me of several people from my dimension, Naruto observed with slight smile. Direct approach sometimes achieves more efficient results than procedural methodology, regardless of universal origin. Indeed, some characteristics transcend dimensional boundaries, practical as assessment often reveals truth more efficiently than formal verification regardless of cultural framework. Their return preparation proceeded with efficiency matching arrival protocols, dimensional transit coordination establishing parameters for reverse translation sequence. As energy patterns stabilized around transit platform, Naruto felt the resonance responding naturally to interdimensional methodology, awakened awareness recognizing fundamental principles beyond technical implementation. Before activation completed, final observation from Hinata captured essential expedition achievement. Beyond formal objectives, today established foundation through practical demonstration rather than merely historical verification. Sometimes direct experience creates understanding that theoretical knowledge alone cannot achieve. The insight carried significance beyond immediate circumstance, recognition that awakening transition would progress through practical implementation rather than merely theoretical understanding. Whatever cosmic destiny awaited through resonance connection, its expression would develop through direct engagement rather than predetermined implementation. As dimensional transit sequence initiated, Naruto carried not merely information but experiential understanding beyond historical documentation, connection to heritage established through practical demonstration rather than merely ceremonial acknowledgement. The awakening would continue through balanced progression, integration rather than replacement, harmonization rather than dominance. Whatever cosmic threshold they had crossed today represented merely initial step in journey that would ultimately bridge dimensions separated for millennia, not through arbitrary authority but cooperative implementation respecting diverse evolutionary paths. The original's legacy would manifest not as predetermined destiny but evolving potential shaped through conscious implementation. The resonance within him responded to this understanding with harmonic affirmation, not directive force but supportive foundation for conscious determination. Whatever cosmic heritage flowed through awakened pathways, its expression remained his to determine through practical implementation rather than merely fulfilling predetermined pattern. As dimensional boundaries dissolved around them, Naruto carried this certainty alongside technical knowledge and historical context. The awakening would proceed according to cosmic necessity, but its manifestation remained his to shape through conscious determination rather than predetermined implementation. The journey had just begun, but its direction would be determined through practical engagement rather than merely historical expectation. Whatever cosmic threshold they had crossed, said today represented not endpoint but beginning, foundation for journey that would ultimately reconnect dimensions separated for millennia through balanced methodology respecting diverse evolutionary paths. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.